Seeing the odd creature in front of him, Ichiro wondered if he was dreaming again. Maybe it was just another hallucination from the Death March. Was it him running away from reality, just like before? Still wondering how he even ended up in that position, he started to remember and think about the precious companions he made along the way. He was supposed to be working overtime on the day it all started. He was typing on his computer like always, finishing a few important updates. After that, he stretched his limbs as it's time to start hunting the bugs for real. Given how behind on the schedule they are, he's going through another death march, but now the client is complaining about their game's difficulty again. It's a war strategy game set in a fantasy world. Endless meetings seem to be pointless, with them now going back on their instructions. His colleague suggests adding an overpowered map clearing skill, and call it Meteor Shower. They push forward with this, since there isn't a lot of time left. Later on, another peer approaches to report a bug in the storage system, which duplicates items and is affecting the environment. It's too powerful, albeit a fairly fun bug to play with. Now, he's being told to fix it, even though it's the server team's job. Fortunately, he's skilled enough to fix the issue within the day. There are still a few concerns to address for sure, but with 30 straight hours working as a corporate drone, sleep is the only justice he can get. Ichiro felt himself floating in the dream world. When he opened his eyes, he found himself in a completely different place, barren and vast. Even his appearance had become younger. He considers it a dream, because his vision looked like a game screen. Since the menu icons can't be touched, he tries to control it with his mind, which fortunately works as intended. His name here is Shin, and he was in Dragon Valley. The rules are just like the war game he was working on, and he can't see much with the radar. Noticing some dust clouds forming, he realizes that something was headed his way fast. As for his skills, he has 3 meteor showers and a full map scan. He selects the last skill for now, and sees countless red dots on the map. An entire horde of lizardmen, around level 50, was rushing to where he was. There's no way a level 1 commoner like him could do anything, so he chooses to stay hidden. However, the leader of the group shouts, and based on the direction, it's obviously directed towards him. Suddenly silent, the lizardman started to draw a huge bow, and before he could react, an arrow sped towards Shin's head. It flew past and missed by a hair, just close enough to graze and wound his cheek. This is when he realizes that it might not be a dream after all. The enemy draws again, this time with the rest of its army. A flurry of arrows started raining down at him. The heavy projectiles shaved through the mountain, and he had no choice but to take cover behind the thickest wall there is. The thick mountain started to break little by little, and the barrage of arrows was closing in on Shin. Desperate not to die within a few minutes, he uses the meteor shower skill. He realizes that the other two aren't activatable, meaning it wasn't implemented before he fell into the world. While wallowing and feeling like he's going to lose due to a bug, the meteor shower he did cast started to fall from the sky. Countless celestial rocks started crashing down like shooting stars, laying waste to the land and completely obliterating the horde of monsters that was attacking him. He almost died himself, but fortunately, he opened his eyes after a while. All there was dust and debris, that, and the general of the lizard man army. He couldn't believe that anyone managed to survive such a destructive power. To his surprise, the monster tosses him a sword, even telling him to take it and fight for some reason. Already knowing that he can't win, Shin intends to get an opening and make a run for it. Now, he points the blade at the opponent, who charges in and skillfully thrusts with a lance. It hits him like a truck, and he's reminded again that it might not be a dream. He grabs the scabbard while falling to the ground, and desperately throws it at the enemy. It's an unexpected move, although one that's easily blocked. However, it was only meant to give the young man a chance. As soon as the general flinched, he launched the sharp blade, which spun and cut the enemy's body in half. He's stunned, not expecting it to slice through so cleanly. It was a gross sight to say the least, but he could see the corpse turning to ash and fading away. Soon enough, there was nothing there. Complaining about how draining the dream is, he tries to touch his wounds, but they've all healed and didn't even leave a scar on his skin. What's more, his stats are off the charts, and he's skyrocketed to level 310. The experience points must be from the massacre due to the meteor shower. Looking down from a high cliff, he sees the wreckage caused by the skill. Still eager for information, he tries to look at the login screen. It welcomes him to the world and a few introductions. He spends some time reading through the text, which mainly contains attack logs from the lizardmen, their dragon overlords, level ups, new titles, and even loot drops from the battle. It seems the corpses disappeared, as they're counted as loot as well. Again, the storage system works just like in their game. He then moves on to organize everything he's obtained, and is relieved to see that he got a lot of gold coins and precious jewelry. Even better, he received a magic item. It's a water pouch, also called the Bag of the Abyss, which is capable of endlessly producing water. He can at least fill a bucket of water to wash up with. Just then, he sees his reflection and realizes that his face has reverted to when he was a freshman in high school. There's also a holy sword among the magic items. It must be strong despite the very cheesy name. Exhausted, Shin eventually falls asleep until the sun rises. He uses some of the clothes dropped by the enemies to replace his torn and shredded ones. It's time to move out, as there's no point in staying there anymore. But first, he'll have to adjust his new set of skills. They can be leveled up with points, so he'll max out the combat and resistance ones. The newbie jumps down the cliff, rapidly and swiftly, covering distance with his new stats. According to the map, there's a warrior's fort towards the west. It might be best to check it out. While traveling across the land, he sees an object floating in the sky. It's an air display, indicating that he was at the barrier of the area. Fortunately, he passes through without any trouble, and as soon as he does, he sees the warrior's fort before his eyes. He expected as much from the map, but it was more of a gravesite devoid of any life. Looking for another town, he sees the map's name change to the Kingdom of Shiga. As soon as Shin entered the new domain, the techniques meant for emergency relief were registered in his roster and became available for use at any time. He can not only scan the map, but also pinpoint anything inside it. There seems to be a small town just a few clicks away, and the level of people on the way is lower than expected. Even so, he liked to avoid contact with the military if possible. If he's lucky, he might even have nice encounters with a few beautiful women. The young man was off to Sirius City and was running across the land as fast as possible. He notices a red light on the radar that was fast approaching. Eager to see what it is, he jumps high up and is surprised to find himself face to face with the beast. They bump into each other, and he crashes back down to the ground, making his world spin out of dizziness. Putting points into his resistance pays off, as he manages to recover pretty fast. He looks up and sees the wyvern he bumped into still flying around. To test things out, he flicks a stone towards it, but the little pebble pierces right through the monster's wing. Although it was just meant to be a warning shot, it was bothered enough to turn away and escape. However, it's headed to where the army is. They're likely high level and should be fine, but he feels bad to just leave things like that. Soon after, the wyvern was indeed flying over the human army, which was doing what it could to organize against the monster. Shin was watching from above and thinking about how similar it is to when he was dealing with the lizard men. This time, there's a big language barrier, making him wonder if there's anything he can use from his new skills. Fortunately, there's something that feels like it'd be useful. The army below were trying to form a scrum to somehow handle the enemy before them. Determined to show the spirit of the kingdom, they remember their training and aim. In addition to the flurry of arrows shot at the beast, a mage calls on the power of lightning to strike it down. With this, the wyvern starts to falter in the sky. Based on the series of events, a mage and a magic soldier are different classes. That said, they haven't dealt a fatal blow to the enemy just yet, but they won't need Shin's help, since their training will be enough. The creature was on the ground, so they tried to lock its wings. Feeling their intention, it bucks and fights back, sending most of the foot soldiers flying off. Back in the air, it moved to escape and was headed straight for the newcomer. Before he could do anything, a voice ordered it to stop, and a woman named Xena started to cast a spell. Standing before it, she summoned a cushioning air wall to deter its movements, but the recoil is so strong that she's sent over the nearby cliff. She was going to fall. Fortunately, another soldier named Lilo activated a fall speed reduction ability, which caught the girl mid-air and allowed her to slowly descend. However, this won't be enough without someone catching her. Shin takes this as his cue and jumps over to rescue her from plummeting down. Cradling her in his arms, he gets the Lifesaver title added under his belt. She was a 17-year-old daughter of a baron's family. Still on a shaky branch on a cliff, he asks if she was injured at all, and says he happened to be passing by while they were fighting the wyvern. Considering him her savior, she asks to know the young man's name. Her smile temporarily stuns him, but he introduces himself as a traveling merchant. Surprisingly, his grin has a similar effect on the young lady, who spews a lot of information about herself, including how she's single and currently without a boyfriend. Not minding the details much, he holds her tight and jumps off the uncomfortable branch. Just like that, they're back to safety on top of the cliff they fell from. He sets Xena back down on the ground gently, but she winces and flinches from the sharp pain in her ankle, which seemed to be sprained. Lilo suddenly came rushing to her side, urgently asking if she was okay. Meanwhile, Iona had a sword to Shin's neck, questioning his identity right away. The unexpected situation silences him for a while, but this is how his life in another world began. Lilo held Xena back as she begged them to let go of her savior. However, Iona continued to point her blade at Shin, telling him to identify himself, but she can't easily believe his story about being a merchant who accidentally lost his wagon. She starts to mellow at the mention of yesterday's Starfall incident. Still eager to get out of the situation, the young man allocates a few points into the necessary skills. When the knight argues that his story is gradually falling apart, the points kick in and he smoothly asks about a place called the Warrior's Rest. It's a place only those seeking death go to, and he was visiting someone when the starfall hit. He tried to chase after his terrified horse, but a man on foot naturally can't do such a thing. His story was finally starting to get to her. Iona sheathed her blade and asked him for an ID, which he says was in his wagon. Taking pity on him, she allows the traveler to have it reissued in the city. Since they have to treat Xena's injuries, they move to regroup with the main unit first. She thanks him for saving the Baron's daughter, and shares that they're a team from the city, tasked with investigating the starfall anomaly. The wounded who can't march are being transported, including the young lady, and will eventually reach Seiryu by wagon soon. Thankfully, Xena's recommendation helped Shin join the group. Soon enough, they start to see the outer walls of the great city, standing tall to protect it from outsiders. He notices that they're butchering the wyvern, mainly to use its hide as a valuable material. As for the meat, it won't be weird to wonder if this is what military rations are for a while. While it's awful and akin to eating a rat, Getting so much would be the cause of a festival in the slums. Realizing that there must be slaves in this world, he thinks about the percentage and diversity of the population. There must even be a demon living in the area. Asked if he knows anyone in the city, Shin shares that he's just going to find an inn, and is quickly given a recommendation. While it's a bit pricey, it's clean and famous for its delicious food. Xena even promises to come visit him once they have a bit more time. After all, she stakes her name and vows to repay him one way or another. He can't help but find the earnest girl adorable. They part ways after agreeing on where to meet again, and Iona leads Shin to the entrance. There, she asks a guard if Sorn the Knight is in. Derek suddenly appeared, asking if the young man is her boyfriend. Considering how young he is, he tells him to grow up well and protect her, so she just clarifies and explains how he saved Xena's life. To get him a replacement for his identification card, they'll need to use the Yamato stone. As such, he's instructed to place his hands on the stone and speak his name. Seeing how flustered he is, they first confirm that he isn't wanted for theft or any other criminal activity. Instead of his real name, he should probably go with his character name here. As soon as he said it, the stone glowed gently and began to show text in the Shiga script. If his real status and level show it, it might cause a scene, so he starts to worry. Fortunately, Derek tells him to let go. The identification shows him as a level 1 15-year-old boy. There's apparently a game setting that allows him to hide his personal status. Seeing how he's already an adult, the guard says he must have been raised in a bubble to still be level 1. 15 years old must be the start of adulthood there. Finally, Shin is given his card and charged with 1 silver coin. While he hurriedly kept it on him, safe and sound, they talked about the city entrance tax, which is usually 1 large copper coin. However, Xena and the captain waived his. As a reward for saving the young girl, he's also given a permit for 10 days, in which he'll be enslaved if he lets it expire. The strict and rash punishment makes him take note of the rule. With all that settled, it was finally time to part ways with Iona, who has other things to do. She directs him to the inn she mentioned, which is just a few minutes away. Confirming everything, they bid each other farewell for now. The city is incredible and a larger fortress than Shin expected it to be. As a game creator, it's impossible not to be thrilled by the sight. Again, he wonders if he's just dreaming or not. He's interrupted as a girl suddenly appeared and clung onto his arm, asking if he just got there. Martha convinces Shin to stay at their affordable inn, saying they have great service, and doesn't give him a chance to say no to the offer. Before he could do anything, he's already being pushed through the door, but he notices a yellow sign, which must be the one Iona was talking about. While he realizes that this is where he was headed in the first place, he's brought to the counter, where the girl's mother scolds her for being too pushy with guests. Game descriptions pop up above the new people, and he can't help but notice the mother, who'd be exactly his type if she were younger. The innkeepers are confused as to why he doesn't have any belongings, so he once more shares the story of losing them during the Starfall incident. After going over the rates for a night's stay and a few meals at the tavern, Shin says he'll take a room for 10 nights. Given the final price, he computes and makes sense of the exchange rate of the world's currency. The kitchen fires have just been put out, so all they can serve is some quiche and some sides, which he'll be glad to have for the night. Martha then goes to have him fill the registry for now. According to the status menu earlier, he should be 15 years old, not a 29-year-old programmer. She's surprised to hear that he's actually older than she is. Meanwhile, her mother returns and places a hefty serving of food on the table. It's cold but still quite good. As if reading his mind, the girl says it's amazing when it's fresh from the oven. She hurries along, reminded to clean the rooms of the cowardly merchants who just left. Apparently, they partied all night and left. They then talk about the demon lord and dragons, who fought a long time ago. The heroes took the lord down several decades ago, but they haven't heard about him coming back. In other words, demon lords and heroes really do exist in this world. If he was in a game, his arrival might trigger unwanted resurrections, and the situation right now seems like it's set up for that to happen soon. She shares that the real threat to the city are the wyverns, but their garrison is strong. Unfortunately, the farmers outside the walls fear that one might swoop down and take them. There are old myths why that doesn't happen too much. It's mainly because the beasts are too lazy and usually stay asleep in the valley. Although a black one reportedly went on a rampage long before she was born, it devoured all the goats in sight, marking a total disaster for the city. While wondering if there were any human casualties, Martha returns and asks if he needs any general goods. A place to buy some everyday stuff would also be great information. While she gives him some tips on how to eat his food, they offer to have a maid buy things for him, but he'd rather do it in person. Second-hand clothes aren't really his thing, and custom-made ones are fairly expensive. He wonders if there's some place to buy ready-made and tailored ones. Tapeta Street is the place to go, but it still might be a bit pricey. As soon as he gets ready to head out, Martha gets an idea and calls to her mother asking for permission to guide him, since they don't have a lot of guests anyway. Told not to stay out too late, the local happily tours the outsider through the market for an exciting day. A lot of places close after noon. Still, he can't help but notice the amount of children working like it's so normal. Shin suddenly notices something strange nearby. He sees the ears of a beast man through the crowd, and guesses that they must gather in the West District more than others. As the sound of screaming rang throughout, he saw the beast children on the floor, scolded by a human male who stood above them. In tattered clothes, they cried from the harsh treatment. The children fearfully started to apologize for whatever they did wrong, but it wasn't enough for the angry man. Fortunately, Shin stepped in just in time to stop him, putting himself between them and asking why he was harassing the poor children. Guessing that they must be his slaves, the man leaves and tells him to put proper ropes on them. He composes himself and starts to help the children, surprised that he reflexively moved to protect them. While he tied some fallen branches together, he notices them looking at him with teary eyes and barely manages to make thankful sounds. Cleaning things up, he hands the branches over and asks if they got hurt at all. Fortunately, they were all good despite the incident. He tells them to stay sharp as there are many people walking around the main street and waves goodbye while watching them thankfully walk away. Martha is quite surprised to see that he's treating beast folk so kindly, confirming that their kind isn't treated so well in the city after all. In the old days, they were treated as cursed beings and were all killed. Many saw them as mere savages that didn't deserve to live. Moving away from the serious topic, she brings him over to a nearby stall. The Cecily market was filled with peddlers selling a variety of things. While looking over the merchandise, he overhears a sale from another stall, with an old lady trying to negotiate the price of fruits with a vendor. Listening intently, he understands that haggling must be the norm, based on how it all works out. On the other hand, Martha was busy trying a few hair clips out and asking for his opinion on which piece fits her look more. He's glad she asked, already knowing that he can't give a vague answer to such questions. The young man shares which he likes more, even giving an explanation as to why. Seeing them, the old merchant charges 3 copper coins for the item, but she apologizes, saying she might have more money after the harvest fest. Shin was already set to treat the modest young girl, but he wants to try haggling as well, so he asks that it be 1 copper instead. Although she worries and tries to stop him from doing so, he already has an idea of the rates after observing the area. He continues discussing, adding a few smaller coins into the mix, and the two finally agree on nearly halving the initial price. He adds a few skills into his status, and Martha thankfully puts on the blue hair clip. It's his thank you for being his guide for the day. The market sense skill quickly makes itself useful, as proper price ranges pop up whenever he focuses on an item that's for sale. With this, they continued strolling around, allowing him to get a better sense of the world and even his companion. Shopping was starting to become easier with practice, and it's common to have tiresome rounds of haggling before finally agreeing on a price. There's also a lot of tailoring and repair shops in the clothing district. Thankfully, his bottomless storage bag was doing all the work for his items. He's called over to see a dragon mask, which is used by the person who takes the role of the dragon at the harvest festival. On the other hand, the one playing the hero wears a black wig, while the blonde one is for the princess or her attendants. Shin gets carried away and buys a bunch too many items. They then overhear someone preaching about the nearing return of the Demon King. A man was calling the starfall an omen, and telling everyone to return to the faith of Zycon. He's the head priest of the temple, which had a shrinking population of followers. They can't really stop anyone from leaving their sect, mostly because they have no one in their ranks capable of using holy magic. While it's cold, it's more practical to give alms to a better temple. It feels more like business than it does faith. With this, the two finally reach the clothing district, with a lot of fashion stores on the street. The first clothing store has great service, and offers to deliver the items to Shin's inn. On the other hand, the second just kept trying to sell him expensive goods. His current robe has great quality, but he'd like something different. The third shop's manager refers him to his parents' tailoring service on Central Street. There, he orders 5 different pieces and matching cloaks, all for 8 gold coins, much to the man's delight. While Martha starts to realize just how much he apparently has, they come across a vendor selling malt syrup. He tries one, and is delighted to be met with a sweet taste. The streets are clean, the alleys are homey, but there are collared slaves in sight. Since many still use them, was magic not handy enough to take over such tasks? Compared to their level of knowledge, their lifestyle seems oddly primitive to Shin, who notes the collars on all of the slaves' necks. Regular workers have normal collars, while criminals have a more apparent marker. He notices a traveling cart full of young girls, with a couple of notable personalities inside. His eyes meet with one of the young girls, and he's surprised to see that she's level 18. It's strange for such a young person to have a level so high already. What's more, her title showed as the Mad Princess, with the skill witch of a fallen nation. The cart goes around the corner so they can't speak, but he can already sense the mess she might drag him into. Their day of shopping finally ends and the two return to the inn. They're welcomed by a little girl named Lily, who offers to bring Shin's shopping bags back to his room. Wondering if tipping is customary, he gives the girl a few coins for the trouble. Then turning to Martha, she excitedly shares that several carriages earlier brought wyvern meat. To people like in the orphanage, it's great news as they haven't eaten meat in months. As for the bath, there's one in the noble quarters, but commoners like them can't use it. Apparently, even hygiene here requires some sort of status. The people in the inn just use the well in the backyard to wash up. He'll have to do the same, with all the soap he bought today. Even the toilet is shared and medieval, although it's kept fairly clean. Satisfied with how clean he is, Shin heads back to the tavern and asks for a dinner recommendation. Today, he'll be having delicious black bread with veggie soup and mead. The special is fresh and hearty boar steak brought in by a hunter. It's lean and a bit wild in flavor, but it packs a great punch. Finally, the mead was smooth and easy to drink. A lovely lady came, looking for a seat, so the two of them shared a table. He watches as she dips the bread into the soup, which must be the normal way to eat it. His reaction helps her realize that he must not be from their small town, and is likely from far away. Commoners eat black bread, but nobles and big merchants in the capital prefer white bread. There, people also mainly eat a grain called rice for carbohydrates. The mention of rice intrigues, and makes him inquire about the capital city of Count Ogok. It's an ancient city by the Great River, and used to be the first capital when the kingdom was founded. Later at night, Shin plopped onto his bed, exhausted from the long day. He couldn't be happier with the inn he picked, especially with their great service. Considering the mess with the lizard men and wyvern, he'd consider today a net zero. Still, being able to create a whole city, languages, and cuisine, it was starting to feel odd for a mere dream. He doesn't know what caused all this, so he might as well enjoy the adventure while it lasts. Even if heroes and demon lords exist, he should be fine as long as he keeps his head down. If he starts raining meteors again, he might be flagged as the next demon lord. The young man enjoys the peace, unaware of the dangers brewing around him. A new morning comes, along with a familiar face in the inn. As Shin went down to start his day, Martha announced that his girlfriend had come to visit. Xena greets him a good morning, to which he replies with a compliment for her outfit. Asked how her leg is doing, she says it's much better now, as a priest in the Garlean temple treated it yesterday. While he wondered if they use holy magic, she shares that she has the day off, and gathers her courage to offer him a tour around the city. Saying she doesn't have to be so tense about the invitation, he happily accepts the kind gesture, much to her delight. With bright smiles, the two explore the town, where Shin suddenly smells soy sauce, which is a legendary seasoning from the kingdom's founder, Yamato. He wonders if it's written in Japanese characters, and if the other legendary seasoning is miso. When Xena orders something from a stall, the vendor asks about Lilo, who's still sleeping in after getting back from a mission. She intended to treat Shin as a thank you, but there he was paying again, reasoning that getting him into the city without the fare was more than enough. They find a bench to share the snacks, and he politely places a napkin in between them. The treat is basically a potato croquette without meat and heavy on oil. She says it's a famous dish created by Lilo's boyfriend. He isn't a great cook, but an eccentric person who knew how to make a variety of things. This reaffirms his idea that other Japanese people must have come before him. Just then, a girl came up to him, asking him to buy one of her flowers. Knowing she must have been waiting for the timing, he asks how much it is, and quickly buys one of the flowers in her hand. He gives it to Xena, who's struck and surprised by the unexpected gesture. She wonders if it's okay to accept such a gift, so he says it'd mean a lot to him if she did. Now, the young lady's eyes glistened while looking at the present, and he's glad that she likes it more than he expected. They continued their food tour, and he even brought some souvenirs for the girls in the inn. After a while, they reach a stall recommended by Lilo, which is coincidentally the one he went to yesterday. He pretends that it's the first time he's tasting the snack, but his acting isn't that great and easily seen through. Moving on, they buy a stick of fried bat wings that are coated in miso. They're modeled after dragon wings for good luck, and are a long-time specialty. Just then, a child came running and ran into her. The wing hits and stains her blouse, which she borrowed from her mother. A stranger approached, offering the services of a magic user. For a small fee, she can use domestic magic to clean the stain right up. Their timing is a bit shady, but Shin doesn't want to worry about that right now. With their approval, the girl starts by targeting the stain, and softly washes it away by coursing water through her clothes. They're both surprised as the thick miso is completely gone, but he has to cover Xena's wet body with a piece of fabric. Now, it's time to dry her clothes properly, and it's easily done with a gust of wind. Relieved by how everything turned out, Shin reached out to the wind, and was delighted to see that he obtained the domestic magic skill just like that. The incantations make it seem difficult, which must balance it in a sense. While the young mage left, he asks Xena if she actually chants when using spells as well. During incantations, Xena takes care of her tempo and rhythm to hit a certain sweet spot. One can memorize the words, but getting everything right is a bit difficult. Shin understands this right away as he struggles to cast a wind spell. Fortunately, it's normal for people to practice multiple times before getting it. As for real training, she spent about 3 years learning wind magic. Looking back now, her everyday habits felt like they were all part of her training to be a mage. Reading about history, practicing music, and even breathing exercises sharpened her skills. Everything from lessons to playtime were designed to help her grow. Seeing his troubled look, she clarifies that her parents didn't have any weird agenda by doing all that. Once she can, she'd love to go on a date in the sky. Intrigued by their use of magic, he sets the goal of flying eventually one day. After vowing to prove her skills one day, Xena then asks why he's learning magic for business or self-defense. He has his own starfall magic, but can't use it for obvious reasons. As for his magic items, he managed to pick up a holy sword back in the valley, and tried to test it out. It was a hefty and intricately made weapon that weighed on his hands, but he felt sparks course through his arms while holding it. A blue light glowed from the blade itself, fading only after some time had passed. He could still feel the electricity hitting his body while he put it in the storage, proving that use causes damage to the wielder. As such, he then takes out a magic gun instead, and shoots a few bullets at a nearby wall. Although there's a delay from when he pulls the trigger, the power is impressive. Speaking of which, he looks at the emergency spell registered under his ability list. He might as well test meteor shower while no one is around, so he sets his eyes on an empty space far away from where he was standing. After casting the spell, he immediately felt the drawback and nearly dropped to his knees. Unlike in the emergency situation, one use of the spell eats a third of his mana. The meteors were about to come. He sees huge balls of flaming rocks bursting into the atmosphere. However, they look too big. The targeted site is supposed to be much farther away, but they were dropping too close, and Shin had to run if he didn't want to get hit by his own ability. The ground started breaking apart as it reverberated from the shockwaves. Fortunately, he managed to cling on to something and stop himself from falling. Based on his observation, the damage and span were amplified due to skill bonuses. He swiftly locks it for now. If he recklessly spams it, he'll be on the fast track to the Demon Lord route. Unable to actually expose this reason to Xena, he lies and says he'd like to learn magic, mainly to be able to bathe properly. The adorably innocent reason for being a mage makes her laugh, as it's the weirdest one she's ever heard of. It's so funny that she can't stop giggling, but if he can afford such training, it might be faster to just have a bath built. Sheepishly rubbing his head, he suddenly gains a negotiation skill and a couple more titles. This time, the two are checking out the street vendors who are selling trinkets. One old lady is selling medicine, using shells as a container. She offers an ointment, which she claims is great for cuts and chapped skin. Feeling like he owes the people at the inn, Shin buys some for everyone there, and gets a few shell containers for Xena. The two later find themselves in one of the city wall's towers, which is great for feeling an amazing breeze. Letting an outsider into a military facility is okay, since the only real threat are the wyverns. If they do attack, a windmill situated nearby also functions as an artillery post. Instead of firing cannons in the middle of town, they use nets and blank shells to drive them away. Their next stop is the Parian Temple, where Xena has an acquaintance. She gives him a tour inside, where Shin is amazed by a large painting on the wall, right behind the altar. It shows the battle between the Demon Lord and the first hero. He wields a holy sword that glows blue when held in his hands. The description makes him think of his own sword, which also shone blue. He confirms that the blade won't shine if it's wielded by anyone else. Only those accepted by the blade can use it properly, and this applies to those without the hero title. Realizing that he's racked up a bunch of titles, which might include hero, he checks his list and sees God Slayer. He must have obtained it from the battle at Dragon Valley. Checking the log again, he indeed sees the title, and finds that the meteor shower really is capable of slaying a god, and that he did kill one just a few days ago. While Xena took note of his sudden silence, another person approached, saying one shouldn't wield the holy sword, just because they can. Only those who answered the Parian's call could face the Demon Lord. The hero blessed by God stands before all, and even the Demon Lord will kneel. Xena brightly greets her acquaintance. Anna returns her pleasantries, saying it's been quite a long time. After catching up with each other's life, she introduces the priestess, who's also the daughter of the Count. Getting past the surprise of who she actually is, Shin introduces himself as a traveling merchant. She asks that he forget about her friend's comment about her lineage. After all, worldly rank means nothing to priestesses like her. With that said, she's glad that the girl obsessed with magic training now has a man in her life. He's silently amused by their youthful bickering, but their conversation is interrupted as someone reports a patient in critical condition. Since priests can't suppress his illness, they try to ask for a shrine maiden. However, they can't possibly send her to a place lined with brothels. As Anna overhears this, she orders the others to prepare a carriage right away, fully intending to go. An aide tries to discourage her, reminding the priestess of a dangerous omen they received recently. The temple that needs help is the one where the preaching priest on the street belongs to. It's possible that he's plotting something to attract a few more followers. Certain that things will be okay, they continue with their tour. The courtyard nearby is filled with men training in sword fighting. There are other areas, including magic training, to preserve mana in fights. Shin is intrigued to hear that the training sessions are split. Roles of soldiers and mages vary depending on elemental affinity. Since Xena is a wind mage, she mainly deals with defense, and using the wind to relay orders. Flight magic would be useful for aerial scouting, but nobody in the Count's army is able to use such an ability. She suddenly rushes to a tree, and picks up a chick that was on the ground. There must be a nest on top of the tree. The nearest branch is about 2.5 meters up, and he should be able to pull himself up if he jumps straight up. On the other hand, the young lady is sad that she can't fly. Asked for his help, Shin gently cradles the fallen bird, and jumps up to the branch exactly according to plan. He returns it to the nest, although the mother bird is more angry than grateful. After Xena fawns over how amazing he is, they continue with their trip around town, even renting a carriage for large copper. There's nothing to complain about when he's driving around the exotic city with a pretty girl. The estate was just up ahead, and the walls were closing in on both sides. Seeing it tower over them was quite an amazing sight indeed. When the carriage randomly hits a stone on the road, Xena's body is thrown towards Shin. While Xena apologized for bumping into Shin, the young man saw the driver, smirking mischievously as he looked at them. He must have had something in mind and done it on purpose. After stopping by the gate to get permission, they proceeded onto the outer walls, where they saw children harvesting baskets of gabi fruit. It's extremely bitter, and often used as military rations. There are so many being grown, and there are several reasons according to the government. Long story short, there are a ton of advantages, making them highly efficient for cultivation. They finally reach the anti-dragon table, With massive mana cannons installed, the place felt heavy with power. It's odd as the farmland is way too near the city's first line of defense, so Xena explains that the planes were actually built to wipe out the wyvern. Shin spots the nearby wall that must be the one they destroyed. It happened just about 2 years ago, leaving even the castle damaged. They only managed to drive it off, still unable to kill even a lesser dragon. After all, beating a dragon is only achievable by someone great, like the hero or Yamato. 40 years ago, when the adult black dragon attacked, nothing could even scratch its scales. He questions how they drove off such a powerful enemy without a hero, and she suggests that, to dragons, humans might be akin to ants. After eating the goats at the ranch, it just leisurely flew away, not even caring about them. It's quite the power gap, yet Shin defeated one without even knowing. He finally asks to know what a hero is exactly. Heroes are apparently summoned by the Empire, through a big ritual. However, the cost of doing it is said to be astronomical, performed only to fight the Demon Lord. The first Emperor and the founding heroes were all summoned by that secret magic. This confirms that the Empire is the key to returning home. He also wonders how realistic the rumors about the Lord's revival are. The Shiga and Saga City oracles receive divine omens when the Lord is about to return, and when any major disasters in the world are about to happen. Perhaps they missed the starfall, because it was beyond the barrier of their valley. Shin recalls the weird wall he just passed through. Was it perhaps another god's domain altogether? A demon lord's power to control other monsters vary from ruler to ruler, and some even fight alone. Mid-tier demons can only be wounded by magic, but lesser spells can't even touch them past a certain point. In fact, they're said to have the power to wipe entire cities with ease. Meanwhile, humans can't even win against high-tier ones. Instead, they plan around them, with the aim of minimizing casualties, like with an adult dragon. Asked which is stronger between the two, she immediately answers that dragons are stronger. Only one lord in history has defeated a hero, but that lord was killed by a dragon. Unfortunately, controlling the beasts is impossible, so summoning them isn't an option. Plus, the collateral damage would be purely catastrophic. Based on all that, Shin gets an idea of where he stands in the supposed tier list. After leaving the manor, they'll be swinging by the West District as well. Without much wealth, the area mostly serves commoners. There are butchers and alchemy shops, which he can see in more detail through the map. At the same spot as yesterday, the slave trading guild was as active as they could be in broad daylight. Apologizing to Shin, Xena suddenly asks the driver to stop the carriage. There, they see the same fat priest from the other day, standing in front of the enslaved. He preaches about demi-humans being failed demons deserving of death. Also, there were the beast children he saved, along with one beastkin adult. The townspeople were chanting to kick out the demi-humans, and it felt like they were seconds away from a full-fledged riot. According to the oracle earlier, tragedy was about to strike the Zycon temple. While Shin wondered if this is possibly what the omen meant, the priest continued to gather anger, urging everyone to smite the demi-humans. He even distributes stones to the civilians, and tells them to strike them down. They're reminded of the starfall, which he says is divine punishment from the heavens. In addition, he claims that a demon lord's lieutenant attacked the earl's castle yesterday. The people ask for mercy as they remember what he's talking about. On the other hand, Shin and Xena are surprised that it actually happened. Someone must have seen a black shadow by the castle, or maybe the earl was attacked from above. It's odd, given that none of the sentries or castle staff saw anything out of the norm. The chances of it being a hoax are also unlikely, since the last person who did that was locked in a dungeon as punishment. Continuing, the priest says the divine blessing is slowly fading away. If they want it to return, then they must follow God's will and cleanse the land. Finally, he points at the Beastkin again, calling them the spawn of their greatest enemies. They'll only receive true virtue if they help clean such beings. As killing is banned by law, he deems the stones sacred, and encourages them to throw. The catch is that they'll be charged coins per stone they ask for. With his fear-mongering, he's able to drive up the prices and people fall for it completely. They start throwing as much as possible, hoping for salvation, and the adult demi-human has no choice but to shield the children with her body. Shin was disgusted, and Xena couldn't bear to watch it any longer. She hops down the carriage and runs forward before her companion could do anything. As the situation grew exponentially worse, the young man realized that he had to start moving as well. He takes a small coin and shoots it at the rocks in their hands, confusing them for just a moment. It's enough to make them hesitate and stop. Meanwhile, Xena had a clear path towards the children. He could easily follow, but something felt off, so he stayed put for now. First, the slave's owner must be someone else. Who and where is he? Using his map search, he locates the master somewhere in the plaza, waiting with a smile on his face. There are 2 people belonging to the Gutter Rats Guild in that spot, and a few more around the area. After taking a quick assessment of the entire situation, Shin tags all targets, including the ones that aren't there. Finally, he starts his own little operation. Xena was trying hard to stop the ensuing brutality, making the priest question if she's actually siding with the demons. Without an ounce of hesitation, the people start throwing rocks at her as well. Shin worries, but there's no need for that. After all, she's a magic soldier who's fully capable of defending herself and the people around her. She's precast a spell, but defending others against so many people might not be easy. He needs to end things before the crowd has the chance to get too hot. A quick chop to a target's neck easily knocks them out, and he drags them to a safe spot, pretending that it's anemia or common fainting. This helps him obtain the abduction skill, which he now decides to level up and use to its absolute fullest. Just as things were heating up again, another priest stepped in, telling them to stop and rebuking such mindless teachings. He's a member of the Garlean Temple. While they started to argue among themselves, pushing the other's belief much stronger, Shin steadily took the enemies down behind the scenes. Xena warns that a public riot might have the Zycon Temple tried for treason, but the man argues that she's just a coward, hiding behind a big name. If she'd rather spare demons, then she must be a traitor to her own kind. The civilians now start to question if she's actually a demon in disguise. On the other hand, the good priest discourages them from pushing their fears on the weak. They accuse him of being a fake, offended that they're being made out as the bad ones. Shin was just about finished with cleaning from behind. The crowd had also started to calm down, but one particular loudmouth was shouting and influencing their opinions. With no gutter rats left in sight, the next thing he needs to do is set the stage. After all, he'll finally be putting his trump card on the stage. Xena was doing her best in trying to dissuade everyone, and promised to stop all the stones with her magic, no matter how many they throw. The Zycon priest scolds Xena for daring to interrupt his divine act. Meanwhile, Shin had moved on to confront the actual owner of the slaves, who was idly watching from nearby. Yuz questions who the young man is and calls for his guard, but the big guy had already been knocked out cold without a problem. A quick knee to the chest hits the slaver, and Shin allows him to lightly rest on the ground. On the other hand, the Garlean priest was still encouraging the townspeople to talk in his temple. While it's odd that the two men from the clergy were opposing each other, Yuz suddenly appeared in the middle of the crowd, gasping for air. The outsider is scorned for striking a devout man who donated demi-human slaves. Not minding the accusation, Shin shares that the man is the ringleader of it all. It might be surprising, but Xena accepts it right away and praises him for being light on his feet. She's then asked to carry his voice to the plaza, if she has enough magic left. While she quickly helps out, he announces that Yuz lent slaves to the Zycon priest to swindle their hard-earned money in exchange for holy stones. The entire crowd is shocked by the revelation that they've all been played, and the loud mouth from earlier continues, now demanding to be given back their money. Everyone else follows, screaming and threatening the dirty priest. However, this isn't where it stops, as there's a bigger goal driving his actions. The objective is to incite everyone there into rebelling and committing treason against the Earl. With a brand new exoneration skill, he says that the priest is the true worshipper of the devil. Although the scam is true, Shin's speech after that was just bait for bigger fish. His objective still isn't clear, as the slaves' prices are much higher than the holy stones. In other words, having them die earlier would have resulted in a financial loss. The loudmouth shouts, asking if he's controlling the demons from the shadows. He was actually approached by Shin earlier, and told to rile the crowd up against the fat priest. However, going overboard like he is now might result in an unwanted riot. Suddenly, things started to click in his brain. Considering the population of the city, the presence of a demon was bothering him. He fell for the trick. Just then, something bursted out of Yu's chest, and everyone was stunned by the appearance of dark and demonic arms. A wave of its hand nearly kills the priest, sending him crashing into the ground. Meanwhile, the slaver couldn't understand what was happening. The people finally started to flee in absolute fear, realizing what they were up against. As it was still blind, the Garlean priest tells them all to evacuate while they can. Xena tells Shin to help get the demi-humans out of the plaza, while she heads out to call for backup before things get worse. He affirms the instruction, scolding himself for even picking a fight with the dumb clergyman earlier. With his bare hands, he breaks the steel ring holding the chains together, and tells the slaves to escape the dangerous place together. They trembled in fear, saying they can't do so due to the orders they've been given. Yuz gave them strict orders against moving, and disobeying would have the collar tightened. The adult demi-human tells him not to mind them and go. Meanwhile, the loud mouth was still shouting, foolishly encouraging the other people to defeat the demon. They endlessly threw rocks at Yuz. A heavy stone hits his head and sends him crashing to the ground. The arms continued to sprout out of Yuz's body, forcing him to stand back up after being knocked down. The sight makes people scramble and run away in fear. Meanwhile, Shin was waiting for the priest's magic, which was taking too long. Unfortunately, the demon was already speaking, saying they freed him by destroying the host's head. The holy magic was finally ready. An anti-evil magic circle appeared below Yuz, but all of it was mere impudence against such a powerful being. More than being locked in a small area, the demon was annoyed that his host can't channel his magic, so he completely tears through the human body. A dark body with devilish wings and limbs appeared. Staring right at the people was a big red eye stemming from its body. It was a lower-ranked demon. The form was delightful and much easier to cast spells with. Shin realizes that this must be the calamity the Shrine Maiden was talking about earlier. He's also surprised as his eyes tell him that the slaves are now without a master. With Yuz dead, was it now possible to move them without repercussions? Still facing the powerful enemy, the priest summons a sacred javelin, but it's nothing but a laughable effort to the demon, who absorbs the power whole with its own. It was using magic, and with a snap of its fingers, easily broke the magic circle, caging it to the area. The human's noise was brief, and now it was time to fear and despair. It was satisfied. Shin was worried, knowing he can't protect the demi-humans completely if it uses magic. He wonders if he should strike first, but failing to kill it might have drawbacks. To his surprise, it announces that it'll be building a nest there, to welcome his master. Was it perhaps talking about an incoming demon lord? A huge dark magic circle appeared below its body, and they had no choice but to flee from the catastrophic attack spell. As Shin put the demi-humans on his back, intending to carry them to safety, a familiar voice called out to stop him. Xena had returned with the reinforcements like she promised. She's quickly told that the demon was planning something big and urgently ordered to get to safety. The two try to regroup, but before he could reach her, he finds his feet being swept to the sky by a powerful gust of wind. They're forcibly parted, with the demi-humans still in Shin's arms, and last thing he sees before disappearing is the holy soldier's blonde hair. Opening his eyes a while later, the four find themselves in the middle of a dark cavern, with no real idea of where they might be. He curiously calls to Xena, hoping for a reply, but it never comes. They were the only people there. Just then, the demon's voice welcomed them to his master's labyrinth. Considering himself a diligent worker, he says he'll create some monsters for them to fight against. Now, they'll have to tremble and struggle in fear for his amusement. There were no rules, and they could even fight among themselves if they wanted. Since he hates the hollow state despair brings to the soul, he's graciously made sure that every room leads to an exit. Now, he looks forward to the anguish that will soon follow their hope. The situation was clear to the game programmer. It's like a forced dungeon escape quest, where they have to push through different enemies. The demon has reconfigured his master's labyrinth, so all sections lead to an exit, to at least maintain a certain degree of hope. Shin was silently thinking in the middle of one of the sections. Even with his map skill, he couldn't see any of the other sections in the dungeon. Despite his expectations, it seems that this won't be as convenient as he wants. While complaining and griping over the design, he finally remembers that he's in there with 3 other people. The demi-humans stared at him cautiously, and the adult started to speak with a trembling voice. Since they had a bit of time, he introduces himself, knowing he has to take care of them first. They introduce themselves as dog, cat, and lizard, all based on their demi-species. Apparently, this is how Yus addressed them before he was killed earlier. Since they asked Shin to give them names that are easy to call out, he names them Tama, Poki, and Lisa. It's fairly simple-minded, and is mainly meant to avoid calling out the wrong name. Since it'll only be until they exit the labyrinth, he hopes that they'll forgive him by then. Moving on, he takes a few medicinal tools to treat the wounds on their bodies. They're told to use cloth and water to disinfect their injuries, which they'll then cover with ointment after. Despite the clear orders, they don't move, so he tries to take on a more commanding tone. Lastly, he says he'll turn around while they treat themselves. This finally gets the 2 young ones to follow and jump around, delighted by the clean clothes. He was extremely confused, but things became clearer as Lisa called to him, suggesting that it'd be better for him to save the supplies for himself. After all, it's unheard of for slaves to be given such high-quality cloth and medicine. He tells her not to worry about it, and just use the items like he said. Although she still feels hesitant, she joins the children and tends to her wounds as instructed. Meanwhile, he goes through the pastries he bought with Xena, which should be enough to feed them. Confirming that they're done, he hands them 3 pieces each. The snacks are on their palms, but they still hesitate, especially from the sheer amount. Understanding why, he tells them to eat, and that there's no need to be shy. The sweetness makes them gobble the food up excitedly, so much so that Shin offers more if they're still hungry. Lisa couldn't believe that they were being given pastries filled with honey. As they scarf down with grateful hearts, he tries using the map again, somehow hoping for a better result. He'll have to map things out manually if it doesn't work, but the combination of magic and the map fortunately saves him from the trouble. Since it's a bit hard to grasp 2D, he switches the mode to 3D viewing. There are 18 humans in the labyrinth aside from them, and Xena seems to be in one of those groups with some soldiers. The priest from Garleon is also there, but far from both of their groups. They look like they'll both survive, but he has no way of communicating with the others. With that said, he wonders if there's any hidden loot to collect. Present monsters range from level 10 to 20, with the numbers steadily growing. Considering this, he decides to prepare weapons for all 3 of his companions. To keep his secret, he pretends that the items in his storage were found in the corridor. However, as soon as he starts moving, they beg him not to leave them, promising to do anything. Lisa even offers to work as a decoy for monsters, as long as he takes them. Saying he's just going to check the hallway, he assures them that there's nothing to worry about, as he isn't abandoning them. This calms them down enough for now, and he's free to fish through his bag. He takes out whatever he can, and finds the magic gun that shoots mana bullets on his hand. The power is adjustable, and at a minimum, only consumes 1 MP per shot. It's a bit tricky to use, but he essentially has infinite ammo while using it. It's finally time to head out, but before that, he hands Lisa a sword, since she's the only one out of the 3 with a proper combat skill. Although it's a spear skill, a dagger will have to suffice for now. Giving a slave a weapon is unorthodox, but it should be okay. He plans on taking the lead and having her protect the rear, but she offers to go first. She's told to just listen, since they won't get ambushed with his radar anyway. Lastly, his absolute order is for them to not join the fight unless he tells them to. They understand and confirm the order. A single hit would be enough to kill them, who are only level 2 or 3. With preparations all done, they move forward. Tama is told to inform them if there is anything down the hall. Meanwhile, Poki has to report if she hears or smells anything strange. Lastly, Lisa is reminded not to fall behind, even if she's on rear guard duty. They all salute like soldiers, despite their fears, likely due to a party-related skill he obtained recently. The four walk through the dark corridors, making sure to fulfill their roles well and responsibly. Fortunately, the enemies are still quite far off. Poki suddenly reports that she smells traces of a battle down the hall. Although he already knows, he showers her with praise. The enemy up ahead is level 20, without any special abilities. As for its stats, the experience to be gained is satisfying enough. Although he can't see the experience points of other people, there was a room right up ahead. Hearing something, Shin tells the others to stay back while he checks it out. Cautiously approaching and peering from the corner of the opening, he sees an enormous spider-like monster. It was a sight that made his stomach churn, mainly because it ate a human corpse on the ground. Not having the stomach intolerance for gore, he wonders if he really needs to fight it to move forward. While looking at the giant monster, he wonders if it will eat him too if he loses. With this fear, he contemplates going back to his room. Lisa suggests that they slip past it while it's distracted, and it's best if they ambush it from behind. Hearing this, he calls himself pathetic and agrees with her plan. He then steps up and tells them to stay back as he draws his firearm and aim it at the monster. He fires but missed, and so he fires again until he hits the target. The girls are all amazed by his strange-looking staff, and he reveals that it is a magical weapon. They promise to keep his secret. He turns his attention to the dead insect. He examines its leg, thinking that he could make a spear out of it. With this, he earns more skills like butchery and entomology. However, the newly created weapon feels flimsy, so he decides to make another one. Using his new skills, he used the monster's power to fuse it, and he successfully created a more advanced version. He turns back at the girls and sees Lisa slicing the monster. He warns that it's dangerous to eat the monster, but she clarifies that she's after its core. Hearing the term monster core, he pauses in confusion. The others explain that monster cores can be traded for money. Realizing this is exactly what he was asking about, he begins to understand their value. Lisa opens a sack and shows the glowing cores they collected. He hands Lisa a spear, explaining its tip is stabilized with a butt cap for better stability. He gives Tama a dagger and tells him to upgrade his equipment. She studies the weapon in silence while he watches his reaction. Activating his power, he decides to cut the chains with it and successfully shatters it. Startled, they stare at the broken chains, realizing they were lucky alive. He tells Lisa to let Tama and Poki take turns in harvesting the core next. The girls quickly agree and prepare to follow his instructions. The group continues moving deeper through the cave. However, despite their efforts, the trio's experience progress still shows no change. He tells Tama to pick up a stone roughly the size of a monster core. She picks it up and looks ahead in confusion. Just ahead, the cave path suddenly splits into two directions. He looks at his map and contemplates if he's going to help the survivors. With this, he asks the girls to follow him. As they move forward, he anticipates incoming monsters. Just then, Tama warns that there are bugs above them. He aims at the monsters and fires. A gigantic insect falls from above them, and he tells Tama to throw her spirit stone. He then tells everyone to fall back and instructs them to attack from behind him. Lisa steps up and strikes the monster. The insect shrieks in pain and falls down to the ground with a loud thud. He then instructs Tama to collect the monster cores, and they observe if the monster is moving still. He tells them to fall back and instructs Poki to flank it with stones. They charge forward and attack, while Poki throws rock at the insect. However, to their surprise, it lunges forward. In a snap, Shin kicks the monster, but Poki runs away in panic and fear. He tries to stop her, but she wouldn't listen. With this, he rushes to grab her, effectively halting her movements. The monster ran off, and he contemplates that the labyrinth is a lot dangerous than he thought. The girls rush over and ask if their young master is all right, and he calmly assures them he's fine. After checking the area, he tells them to head back and retrieve the monster cores. Poki apologizes nervously as she approaches him. He sighs and says he isn't angry. He calmly reminds Poki that if things become dangerous again, she should run instead of panicking. She nods nervously and answers him respectfully. A system message appears, granting him the new title Tamer. The group gathers around the defeated monster inside the cave. He begins recording their names and plans to store their belongings in case their families need them later. Noticing their torn clothes, he pauses and realizes they may need replacements. Noticing some of them are barefoot, he tells the girls to take their shoes. The girls quickly grab the weapons and prepare to wear them. Watching closely, he notes that the monster-assisted attacks seem to be working. A system display shows their levels and skills rising as they continue fighting. However, some skills remain grayed out, meaning they haven't been activated yet. He checks their status and realizes he can view their information, but cannot change their skill setups. Seeing they still have time before the exit, he tells the group to move on and continue exploring the remaining rooms. While exploring, they've passed 6 more rooms and still found no survivors. After Lisa completed gathering the cores, he tells them to take a break. Lisa grabs the water pouch to drink from it, but accidentally dropped it. She clumsily tries to retrieve the spilled water again and apologizes to her master. She says she's deserving of punishment, but he dismisses her, saying that the magical water pouch produces endless water supply. He suspects that she's tired, and she confirms that she feels sluggish. It is the same for Tama and Poki, who feel the exhaustion as well. With this, he suggests that they take a longer break and takes care of the girls. He lets them eat dried meat, and they almost cry in happiness, including Lisa, who really loves meat, Seeing them enjoy, he gives them more of it and tells them to rest after eating. Lisa tries to volunteer to set their camp, but Shin is adamant to make them rest first, and so they follow his order and they sleep peacefully. Later, their grayed out skills activated again, and they gain new skills through leveling. After that, they cleared more rooms, and while exploring, Tama warns them to stop as she feels something wrong on the ground. Shin uses his skill and discovers that there are traps nearby. He praised the child for detecting it and warns the other girls to take care. He then throws a rock to the ground, but the trap didn't activate, and suspects that it only reacts on living things. He scans further but found no signs of threat. He decides to use it against monsters and lure them in. Seeing few ahead in his map, he throws another rock to get their attention. Tama declares that there are incoming monsters, and he tells them to fall back. Just then, monster rats charge to their direction, but they quickly get electrocuted by the traps. A giant toad also showed up, and Lisa charges at it with her spear, while Poki and Tama also strike. After annihilating the monster, Shin praises them for their hard work. The three turn at him with bright smiles on their faces, and he is glad that they've handled the fight pretty well. He notices that Lisa is on dismantling the camp, and sees a rundown house nearby. He tells Poki and Tama to check the place out. Poki runs ahead towards the place, and helps Shin to check it. As they enter, they discover glowing objects that appear to be magical fixtures. When he grabs one, the light immediately goes out, showing it cannot be taken outside. Nearby, he finds weapons and gear, deciding the short sword and buckler suit Poki and Tama well. Behind a painting, he discovers a hidden safe concealed inside the wall. Inside the safe are valuable materials, including dragon powder and dragon scale dust. He also finds healing potions, realizing the previous owner might have been an alchemist. Searching further, he notices several spellbooks stored on the nearby shelves. Among the items is a magic scroll, and the system announces he has obtained excavation and treasure-related skills. In the kitchen, he finds a tinder rod, a magical tool used to easily start fires. He tells everyone to secure cookware and tableware so they can use them later. He also prepares water and supplies, thinking it may help if they meet other survivors. Using bottles and oil, he quickly makes several makeshift firebombs and stores them away. Suddenly, Tama smells something and excitedly discovers a stash of dried meat nearby. As they gather the food, he warns everyone to step back because the floor is slippery. After securing everything inside, he pushes the door open and prepares to move forward. They are thrilled to see different kinds of food on the table. After storing the wine, he offers Poki and Tama a taste of the meat. The two happily oblige and savors the exquisite meat. He stores the remaining food thinking he'll share it with Lisa later. They excitedly walks back to her, and she requests that they start a fire. When asked why, she reasons that she wants to grill the frog meat and eat it. Seeing his worry, she explains that she can eat the frog as long as she avoids its poisonous parts. Assured, he lets her start a fire using his ignition tool. The girls help each other cook the frog. Its aroma tickles their noses as if someone is grilling chicken. Later, Lisa hands Shin the cooked frog, and he carefully tastes it. As he chews, it tastes truly like a chicken, and found the three staring back at him with anticipation. He tells them to start eating and they happily oblige, devouring the meat with enthusiasm. He also eats his own portion, finding it tasty like the loot he obtained. After they eat, he helps the girls clean, and later, they all sleeping peacefully by his side. While they are sleeping, he thinks of reading the spellbook he got, and opens his inventory. He discovers that Magic Book had information on the scroll, which allows the use of a fire spell called Magic Bullet. After their break, they start exploring the labyrinth again. He checks their stats, and is thrilled to see their growth compared to when they started. Ahead of them, they see slimes wiggling on the ground. Given this chance, he tries to use the fire magic scroll and use the magic bullet. He aims at the monster and fires away, injuring it. While adding the skill to his magic list, Lisa calls his attention. She tells him that when defeating a slime, he should always aim for the core, and points out that it is always located in the part with a different color. After watching it revives, she demonstrates and attacks the slime's core, ending it effectively. The defeated monster melts away, and Lisa calmly notes that it was surprisingly easy to defeat. The group looks around the cave as the remains disappear from the ground. Tama suddenly notices something strange about the nearby wall. Curious, Shin steps closer and carefully examines the surface. Realizing something is hidden, he concludes there must be a secret path behind the wall. Studying the layout, he realizes it leads to a vertical shaft that could be a hidden pitfall trap. Deciding it may be dangerous, he tells the others to leave a mark before moving on. The group carefully proceeds deeper through the cave. Looking at the map again, he notices signals ahead and wonders if there are other survivors nearby. Suddenly, he senses something unusual and quickly tells everyone to stop moving. Realizing the danger, he immediately stops everyone and tells them not to move. Checking the map, he sees a red dot rapidly approaching their position. He warns the group about it and orders them to retreat to the previous room. As they prepare to move, the system identifies the approaching creature as an undead death beast with a weakness to holy attributes. He realizes the creature is level 40, far stronger than any enemy he has faced before. Even so, he steadies himself and prepares to confront the approaching threat. Moments later, a dark figure appears from the tunnel as he whispers that the enemy has arrived. The massive undead beast emerges from the shadows, revealing its terrifying level 40 strength. He steps forward to face the approaching beast as its glowing eyes emerge from the darkness. Keeping calm, he watches the creature carefully and prepares for its attack. Suddenly, the death beast lunges forward, and he is startled by its speed. The beast crashes into him with terrifying force. Behind him, the girls panic and shout for their master as they see him thrown aside. He endures the impact and is relieved he activated pain resistance before entering the labyrinth. He can't let the beast move free from him since it might help the girls. Even while fighting, he cannot stop thinking about the strange hidden door they discovered earlier. The beast roars, but he refuses to be crushed by a monster with fangs that large. Gathering his strength, he strikes the beast with a powerful counterattack. The blow sends the creature crashing across the ground, tumbling violently down to a hole. Catching his breath, he admits that using traps earlier may have saved his life. After the danger has passed, he says it is time to regroup with the other survivors. As they move forward, the girls suddenly notice sticky spider silks clinging to them. The group enters a strange area covered in thick webs, realizing they have walked into a spider's nest and no monster guarding it. Using his detection skill, he discovers survivors trapped inside nearby cocoons and decides they must rescue them. As he approaches one of the cocoons, he checks the map again and notices movement approaching from below them. Realizing enemies are coming, he immediately orders everyone to stop the rescue and prepare for battle. Suddenly, a giant spider comes out from the darkness and attacks the group. Reacting instantly, he throws a stone to draw the monster's attention. Taking the chance, Lisa leaps forward and strikes the creature. Tama and Poki follow her lead, charging in to join the fight. The girls shout as they slash repeatedly at the spider's body. Even with their attacks, the massive monster keeps moving. Watching closely, he realizes their attacks will not work and searches for its heart instead. He timed it with Lisa's attack and hopes that no one noticed his help. Moments later, several survivors emerge from the webs and gratefully thank them for saving their lives. One man introduces himself as Belton, the head of the Belton family. Another man steps forward and introduces himself as Nido, a slave trader. When asked about himself, he calmly introduces himself as Shin, a traveling merchant. Curious about their work, he asks what kind of occupation they have. The man explains they kill monsters inside labyrinths to obtain cores and treasure, and known as explorers in the Shiga Kingdom. Hearing this, he realizes that jobs similar to those in games truly exist in this world. Suddenly, a young man angrily shouts at Poki, refusing to be helped by a beast girl. Demanding the dagger from her, she refuses, and says the dagger is given to her by her master. Seeing the blonde man, he realizes he looks familiar, and remembers encountering him earlier as someone who was harassing Poki and Tama on the street. He then calls for Poki to come as the man angrily orders them to hurry up and get him out. Ignoring the demand, he tells the man to free himself instead. The blonde man angrily complains while another man silences him. Zen warns that making noise could attract more monsters and threatens to burn him if necessary. This behaved the man, and Shin quietly remarks that this is typical noble behavior. After collecting the monster cores, he praises the effort of Tama. The trader explains that the cores they found are high grade and that red cores are rare. Nido explains that monster cores are refined into magical goods, and higher grade cores allow the creation of more advanced magic items. As the group distributes the remaining weapons to the survivors, he lets the girls help collect supplies. Zen remarks that their fighting strength should increase, but says he prefers saving his magic for more worthy enemies. Nido adds that while he can protect himself, he is not reliable during combat. This means further problems for Shin. The blonde man boasts that with a proper weapon he could have easily crushed the monster. Suddenly, a skeleton attacks and strikes him, but Poki comes to his rescue. Meanwhile, Shin tells Lisa he is counting on her, and she charges forward and clashes with the skeletons. Nido checks on the injured blonde man and asks if he is alright. After examining him, they conclude that he likely suffered a rib fracture. Lying on the ground in pain, the blonde man wonders if he might actually die there. Shin bluntly tells him that without Poki saving him earlier, he would already be worm food. He curses his situation, as Zen coldly states that if the injured man cannot walk, they should leave him behind. While Shin is conflicted, Poki and Tama quietly look at him with pleading eyes. Having no choice, he retrieves the magic medicine from his pocket and decides to help the injured man. Surprised, they ask what it is, and he explains that it is a magic potion. They make the man drink the potion, and in an instant, it healed him, to which surprised Shin as well. Nido explains that a mid-grade potion like that normally costs at least 3 gold coins, which for Shin is a bit of an overestimate. The group continues moving deeper through the dungeon corridor. He activates his skill, and he realizes that Xena's group is fighting slimes in the central hall ahead. Poki points toward a direction and says the noise is coming from there. He immediately springs into action and takes the lead. However, he is worried about Xena, seeing that her mana is running low. When they arrive, they see slimes attacking the group. He then quickly orders Tama and Poki to take a torch from the bag. He lights the torch and prepares to use the flame against the approaching slimes. He orders Lisa to aim for the core while he keeps the slime distracted. He adds that once they're done with the slimes, they should follow him. Scanning the chaos, he finally spots Xena struggling with the slimes. Suddenly, a slime lunges forward and wraps around her. Seeing the danger, he immediately rushes forward and rescues her. The girl screams as the slime violently splashes. He slashes through the slime while pulling the girl away from its grip. The slime bursts apart under his daggers. After finishing it off, he quickly asks if she is alright. Overwhelmed with relief, she rushes forward and hugs him tightly. Through tears, she thanks the heavens that he is safe. Caught off guard by the sudden embrace, he freezes in surprise. Clearing his throat, he brushes it off and says there is no harm done. Even so, he quietly admits he is glad to see she is safe too. Just then, Anna arrives and orders everyone to focus on repelling the monsters first. Flustered, Xena wears something decent to make herself presentable, while Anna deduces that Shin knew the slime's weak point from the start. When questioned about who taught him the trick, Shin replies that Lisa taught him, which makes Xena jealous. Changing the subject, he teaches them the trick to spotting a slime's core. By holding the torch close, they can lure the slimes away. He also suggests using wind magic to reveal their direction. Xena apologizes, explaining her mana is drained and she will not be able to recover it for a while. Thinking quickly, he considers yelling loudly enough to trigger a communication instead, and so, using his skill, he loudly orders everyone to aim for the slime's cores. He observes, and satisfied that the message worked since everyone is aiming for the core, including Lisa's group, he expresses that helping rescue people has basically been his job this entire time. Many soldiers gather in the labyrinth, with over 70% of the temple's forces now present. A priestess thanks Shin for helping earlier, while he replies he is simply glad they arrived in time. Noticing her standing quietly with Anna, Shin observes that her mana is slowly recovering. The priestess announces she will cast sacred healing on the wounded gathered nearby. The injured soldiers gather as the healing ritual begins. She starts chanting the long sacred spell, and after 2 minutes, she managed to activate an area healing spell. He watches as the glowing particles float around. He touches one of the floating lights with his finger, and he instantly acquires the skill, Divine Magic, Parry and Faith. Xena approaches him, who expresses that she's glad he is safe. He thanks Tama and Poki, saying he is still alive thanks to them. She realizes that they are the demi-human girls from before. Lisa formally introduces herself and thanks Xena for protecting them from the falling stones above ground. The girls react in surprise upon knowing this and show their gratitude as well. Xena then tells Shin that there might be an exit ahead, but Shin is unsure if the passage is large enough. With enthusiasm, she shares that there is a spell called Wind Path that can detect air currents. She informs him that their scouts are checking now and asks everyone to wait while hoping for good news. Xena explains the chaos began when a slime suddenly dropped from the ceiling right after the scouts left. Beyond the chamber lies a long corridor leading to the exit, though there is a problem ahead. Shin's map reveals the hall is actually a deadly murder room. He estimates they could handle around 30 skeleton soldiers, though the level 30 skeleton knights. Thinking it through, he suggests attacking once the priestesses recover their mana, wishing they had a purification spell like in games. Soon, the scouts return confirming the same findings, and the captain immediately begins planning their tactics. They share the plan to the group, and others listen carefully. Shin and the girls wait nearby as preparations for the fight continue. After the captain's briefing, the battle finally begins, and the civilians are ordered to stay in the back room. Meanwhile, civilians complain about the demi-humans, calling them beasts. They wrinkle their noses and wonder what that strange smell is. The blonde man tells them to be quiet, as Naito tells the man to stay calm. Shin decides they should check the front hall and takes the girls with him. Smiling politely, he says he will step out for a bit and thanks them. From the corridor, he watches as the soldiers face a group of skeletons advancing from the tunnel. The captain orders the spearmen to hold their line and smash the skeletons instead of stabbing them. From behind, a priestess Cass uses her purifying spell against the skeletons. Suddenly, 2 large skeletons appear, and the soldiers quickly warn the captain. Even so, the soldiers continue their assault as they push forward to sweep away the skeleton. Watching closely, Shin realizes the front line is being pushed back by the Death Scythe-wielding skeleton. The massive Death Scythe skeleton swings its weapon violently. Seizing the moment, the captain shouts for the soldiers to strike together. Though the battle is fierce, the soldiers eventually defeat the skeletons without suffering casualties. After the fight, they reach a massive door, which Xena believes leads to the surface. However, the huge gate refuses to open, even when attacked with magic and weapons. As they wonder what to do next, one of the girls calls out to Shin. Checking his map, he realizes there is a hidden door nearby, and that the shaft below leads to the place where the death beast fell. As he prays the girl, he notices a new enemy signal appearing on his radar, and pauses in confusion. Just then, someone points out a treasure chest nearby, catching Shin's attention. He suddenly realizes the enemy signal is coming from the same direction. From the dark, a strange creature holding with a glowing red eye appears, mocking everyone. Seeing the unexpected enemy, they immediately react in shock. Shin realizes the treasure chest is actually a mimic that can even imitate magical signals. The captain immediately orders the soldiers into a triangle formation and tells Xena and Belton to cast defensive magic on the front line. Recognizing the enemy as a demon, the Viscount prepares to stall it with magic and orders an attack. Watching the battle, one of the girls comments that the soldiers must have been conserving mana earlier to fight demons. Meanwhile, the demon unleashes a violent attack, clashing fiercely with the soldiers. Suddenly, Shin senses a strange force targeting him and realizes something is wrong. The demon casts a charm spell on the soldiers, but Shin gains resistance to the evil eye and curses under his breath. Meanwhile, Lisa orders Poki and Tama to hunt as many enemies as possible for their master, and they all fight the monsters together. The demon gleefully watches as the charmed humans begin attacking each other. Belton noticed the red eye, calling the situation entertaining. As he prepares another spell, he then unleashes Inferno Pillar, sending a towering column of flames toward the demon. As the flames rise, the Viscount declares that humanity will not remain victims of demons forever, while Shin suddenly realizes something important. The demon casually withstands the flames, revealing that fire magic barely harms him. Seeing this, the Viscount realizes that the enemy is far stronger than he expected. Shin quickly understands the demon's counter magic will strike before the Viscount finishes casting. Realizing the situation is critical, Shin knows he cannot keep hiding his abilities and must act. Determined to protect Xena, Shin decides he cannot just stand by and watch her die. Suddenly sensing movement behind him, he turns in alarm, surprised to see the undead beast attacking the civilians. Realizing he was too focused on the battle earlier, he regrets neglecting the radar. With sudden clarity, he grabs a stone and gets its attention, before it can tear apart the helpless victim. Before it can strike, Shin rushes in and places himself between the monster and the fallen man. Xena notices this and calls out his name in shock. As the creature lunges closer, he realizes that lies behind the wall is a hidden passage. The beast crashes through the wall, revealing a hidden passage behind the rubble. Seeing this, Xena moves into action, but a soldier quickly restrains her. Seeing her worry, he apologizes to Xena in his thoughts, and will deal with the scolding later. As he falls, he realizes there is a small room directly beneath the hidden passage. The undead beast leaps down after him, attacking the moment they land. Drawing his weapon mid-fall, he prepares to counter the beast's assault. With swift movement, he twists through the air and strikes back at the charging monster. After defeating the beast, he examines his holy sword and notes that although it drains health slightly, its sharpness is incredible. Wanting to avoid suspicion, he decides to put on a disguise before entering the room. After changing clothes, he remarks that his head feels strangely exposed. Checking his interface, he wonders if there is anything useful he can buy. He then remembers the mask purchased earlier, and decides to wear it. Without wasting time, he leaps away, determined to return quickly. While moving through the tunnel, he suddenly encounters several monsters blocking the path. Thinking quickly, he pulls a large rock from storage and hurls it towards the monsters, smashing them to clear his way, and earning the title the Merciless. The nearby soldiers and civilians stare in confusion as the disguised Shin suddenly rushes past them. Without slowing down, he dashes through the tunnel at incredible speed. Arriving at the battlefield again, he sees the demon still facing the soldiers amid a storm of magic. His eyes scan the battlefield, and breathes a sigh of relief to find Xena and the trio safe. He then gets the attention of the monster, which staggers in shock. He then tells the knights to leave the demon to him, who all are refusing to leave the matter to a stranger. The demon demands to know who he is, since a mere thrown stone managed to damage him. It then attacks, and Shin swiftly dodges it. Belton tries to cast a spell, same with Ona. The combined attacks strike the demon and erupt in a violent explosion. The surrounding knights seize the opportunity and attack as well. The demon mocks the idea of being defeated by humans, and declares he is filled with regret for underestimating them. Suddenly, the demon unleashes a massive dark magic circle that spreads across the battlefield. Realizing something dangerous is happening, the knights quickly warn everyone to take defensive positions. Seizing the moment, Shin rushes forward and prepares to deliver the finishing blow. He activates a dark magic ability that grants him resistance to dark attacks. However, he is suddenly struck by the demon's attack. Regaining his footing, he looks up in surprise. The demon laughs with excitement as dark energy surges around him, surprising everyone as well. From the massive magic circle, a towering horned demon begins to emerge. Seeing the overwhelming presence, Shin's eyes widen in shock. They realized in horror that the creature is a demon lord, a being said to rival a god and serve the demon king. As the demon lord towers over them, they all stare in disbelief, realizing that the enemy before them is an upper demon. The demon lord calmly praises the summoning and devours the lower demon, absorbing all of its essence back to his body. Shin observes as the demon lord fused with the lower demon. With a cruel smile, the demon lord mocks them and dares any strong warrior to face him. Meanwhile, the knights are seemingly weak and helpless. The demon lord's power erupts across the battlefield as terrified soldiers are blown away by the overwhelming force. Realizing he cannot protect everyone, Shin tells the knights to endure on their own and use the wind-related skills they have gained earlier. The demon lord charges forward as Shin intercepts him. Seeing his holy sword weapon, the demon lord wonders if he is a hero. Furious, the demon lord prepares to attack seriously, declaring he will go all out. He then activates enhancement magic to increase his physical attacks. Shin suddenly fires his weapon at it, but he managed to dodge. The demon lord lunges forward and clashes directly with Shin's attack. The two collide in a violent exchange of blows as their weapons crash together. The demon mocks him after seeing he can't wield his sacred sword properly. Shin recalls that only someone with the hero title can unleash a holy weapon's true power against demons, and so he cannot land a fatal blow. As the battle intensifies, he suddenly acquires new resistances against lightning magic and paralysis. The demon lord attacks again, slashing forward with overwhelming speed, He notices he keeps gaining resistances to poison, disease, and corruption while enduring the demon's status attacks. He gains praise from the demon for holding up, but also planning to end the fight soon. Shin's HP remains stable thanks to level difference, skills, and automatic healing. Furious, the demon lord charges again, but he swiftly swings his holy sword to its direction, cutting his arm. The demon lord comments that he has quite a sharp weapon. The demon warns that each time Shin strikes him, he will spawn new minion. Laughing confidently, the demon lord declares that without the hero's power, Shin cannot possibly kill him. Realizing the sword alone is useless, Shin concludes that magic may be his only option. He considers powerful spells like Meteor Shower, but hesitates, knowing such magic could destroy the city and harm Xena. While he thinks, the demon lord charges forward with another fierce attack, and they continue to exchange heated strikes. Surrounded by his enemies, the demon lord scoffs that such weak magic could never hinder his enjoyment. Growing angrier, he roars that he is furious and prepares another violent attack. Raising his weapon, Shin declares that he will not allow the demon to continue. A sudden blast strikes the demon lord, interrupting his advance. Staggering from the hit, the demon lord admits he became careless. Watching the demon regenerate, Shin realizes wounds from his magic gun heal slower than sword cuts. After finishing a quick crafting process, he plans to distract the demon with fire blasts before firing the spell gun at close range. Activating the spell, he launches another fire shot toward the advancing demon. Shin recalls that casting Meteor Shower directly is far stronger than using a scroll. The demon lord roars that such an incredible fighter, being a mage, is completely absurd. Shin explains that he is only using the beginner spell Fire Shot, and too much power makes it hard to control. He declares that their fight is over, and charges toward his enemy again. He recalls the rule that only a hero wielding the sacred sword can defeat the demon lord. He rises again, and Shin launches another fire shot directly at him. He reflects that the enemy is an upper demon close to divinity, yet even with a holy sword he still lacks the title of hero. He dives forward and slashes again, taking advantage of the brief opening before the demon's body can regenerate. Realizing the moment is fleeting before the demon regenerates, Shin switches both weapon and title. He plunges downward in a powerful strike aimed directly at the demon. As Shin stands amid the aftermath of the battle, the demon lord quietly admits that he has lost, and the others can only watch in shocked. Shin walks away from the battlefield, not planning to reveal his identity to anyone. Shin recalls that with the title God Slayer and the divine sword, he can defeat enemies even close to gods. His companions rush toward him in relief, celebrating that he is safe after the battle. Checking his status, he notices several new titles appear, including Labyrinth Conqueror, One Who Dances with Demons, and Demon Slayer. He also obtains the long-awaited title Hero, wishing he had gained it earlier. As the group leaves the battlefield together, the dungeon entrance opens once more, thinking they're the last civilians remaining. A bright light appears ahead, as they finally reach the surface after the long battle below. The authorities explain that everyone must be checked for demon-borne diseases, telling them to wait until the inspection is finished. As the inspection is ongoing, he goes ahead and tells others he will wait for them beyond the checkpoint. He leaves their belongings on the counter, and lets them check his status. The woman remarks that Shin's level is impressive for someone his age. The trio then gets checked, and they are also praised for having such high levels for slaves. Soon after, the four of them are placed into a carriage and escorted to the Count's castle. In a surprising turn of events, they are ordered to keep quiet and remain inside the dungeon for a few days. They are being charged of rebellion after actually saving the kingdom from a greater demon. A guard approaches the cell and asks which one of them is Shin. He steps forward, refusing to abandon the three girls as the guard orders him to follow somewhere else. As he gains the skills, bribery, and persuasion, an elderly steward named Deschamps introduces himself from House Viscount Belton and apologizes that he was mistakenly thrown into a dungeon. As compensation for the misunderstanding, the Viscount sends a small token of gratitude. He then invites them to stay in a comfortable room and have the maid cater to their needs. After bathing, the group enjoys a large meal together at the estate, grateful to finally relax. The girls excitedly jump onto the soft bed with Shin, after they begged him to sleep together. After enduring the battle, Shin struggled to stay awake and finally drifted to sleep. During house arrest, Shin spends the time productively studying while the girls stay beside him. He requested a better treatment for prisoners, and asked them to formalize the slave ownership contract soon. He confirms that if an owner dies in the labyrinth, it is possible for him to become the new owner. The official explains that Yamato stones can reveal his record, and evaluate his gift. 5 days later, Xena and the priestess Auna visit. Over tea, Shin is glad to hear that Xena was released quickly to work at the temporary camp. She explains that professional mages are maintaining barriers so the labyrinth does not expand beneath the city. Auna adds that temple priests have been busy performing consecration rites for the city's new monument. Xena explains that the area in front of the labyrinth has now been enclosed with temporary walls, and heard that Shin should be released in a few days. 3 days later, Shin is finally released from house arrest, and welcomed by the other prisoners. They cheerfully thank him for requesting better treatment for them, especially the food inside. Shin agrees and admits he almost wanted to remain there a few more days. As they leave the slave market, Shin reflects that Nito offered to handle the slave contracts for free. Suddenly, the blonde man earlier calls out to them. He stands protectively against the girls, intimidating another man. To their surprise, the The blonde man bows before them and thanks them for saving him. The slave trader prepares to proceed with the business. Later, the girls stand beside Shin as he is now their formal master. Nito invites Shin to look at the few slaves left over from the recent auction. After listening politely, he notices two familiar girls and realizes he has seen them before. One of the girls quietly introduces herself as Lulu, who seems so delicate and has etiquette for a slave. Shin suddenly notices another girl and is surprised by her striking beauty. Nito explains that she was not sold because her bright violet hair is considered ill-omened. The violet-haired girl politely greets Shin and introduces herself as Arisa, who became a slave after losing her country. The two stand next to each other, drawing attention with their unusual appearance. Nito points out that they are sisters despite not looking alike. An idea struck him, and he leans closer to test the idea, whispering something to Lulu, but she didn't respond. Realizing his guess was wrong, he concludes they are not Japanese after all. He tries the same to Arisa, and whispers near her ear, catching her completely off guard. She suddenly panics and flails around, shouting for someone to get the spider off her. He realizes she understood the warning because he spoke in Japanese. He realizes that she is the same as him. In the end, he forms a slave contract with Lulu and Arisa after hearing Arisa's information. He originally tried to free the girls from slavery, but Nito stopped him and suggested it was safer if the sisters stayed together. Since beast folks are treated even worse than slaves in some places, he decides to keep things as they are for now. He also decides to stay at the camp until tomorrow morning, while Nito offers him a crash lesson in slave training and etiquette. The two sisters step forward and ask to properly introduce themselves. Arisa introduces herself again, saying she is 11 and from the fallen kingdom of Kubuk. The quiet girl introduces herself as Lulu, revealing she is 14 and also from Kubuk. The group then introduces themselves to them. Lisa introduces herself as member of the Orange Scale tribe. Arisa points out that he's bold to take demi-humans with him, but he explains that he just met them by chance. The children were abandoned because people feared their mixed human and beast features. Arisa pats the beast girl's ears and declares they are far too cute to hate. The group heads toward the gate as he suggests finding an inn. He suddenly notices the smell of food and realizes it is already dinner time. He decides they should grab dinner nearby before continuing and decides to go for meat. A store owner welcomes them and invites the young master to eat there. Lisa tells him that she is the man she once rescued from a slime. Seeing that the place serves meat and seems friendly to beast girls, he decides they might as well eat there. The waiter explains they saved his life in the labyrinth and in the castle dungeon, and with this, the wife thanks them for saving her husband. To avoid trouble with other customers, they are seated at a hidden table, and moments later, their food is served. The children stare at the food with sparkling eyes, barely containing their excitement. Shin tells everyone to start eating before the food gets cold, and remind the girls to blow on it first. After letting them eat first, he gained the skill, service. The children happily devour the spicy dish, declaring it perfectly seasoned. While eating, Lisa says she will handle the spicy food if the others cannot. Seeing everyone enjoying the meal, Shin decides to order more and plans to buy coats and shoes for Arisa and Lulu. The servants try to contest, but he made up his mind and steps out for a bit. After finishing, he thanks the owner and leaves a few large copper coins as a tip. He bought snacks at a nearby yakitori stall and decides he could go for a beer. He suddenly notices small beast children hiding in the alley, including catfolk and dogfolk slaves. He offers them some of the skewers, which they happily accept. Afterward, he picks up more yakitori and new clothes for Arisa and Lulu. Later that night, he arrives at the inn and is warmly welcomed by Martha. She heard from Lady Marianne and knows he went through quite an ordeal. He admits he would not even be here if the girls had not saved him in the labyrinth, and declares that he wants to rent rooms for the girls as well. She explains that the inn is full, though his old room is still available. Seeing the look from other guests, the group wonders if they should look for another inn instead. Shin falls silent as he thinks about the situation. He asks Martha to show the two sisters to their room and asks how much the extra charge will be. Deciding not to take the space, he says he will camp outside with the other three girls. Arisa gently grabs his hand and asks him to calm down. She tells him to stop glaring since it is making everyone uneasy. She politely asks Martha's mother if they could borrow a corner of the barn or carriage house. She explains that the children have saved many human lives inside the labyrinth and asks if they could receive a small measure of mercy. She then tells Martha to guide them to the barn. Shin thanks Arisa for helping smooth things over. Later that night, they finally retire at the old barn. Shin quickly prepares a bed of hay as Lisa stores their luggage while they settle in. He explains the bed situation and warns that if anyone suspicious sneaks in, they should just subdue them, and gives them food supply if they get hungry. A moment later, Arisa and Lulu arrive, and he apologizes for making them wait. Apologizing for making him wait, he notices Lulu looking pale and thinks about asking Arisa about the Japanese language later on. As he turns, Lulu suddenly grabs his arm and tells him that she is just helping him get ready. Told that she get ready instead, Lulu blushes and nervously agrees. However, as she steps forward, she suddenly trips. Embarrassed, she insists she is fine. He thinks that she is simply uncomfortable around men and reassures himself that it is a normal reaction since they only just met. Later, the girls prepare to take a bath. He tells them they will go out tomorrow to buy their personal items and asks them to rest for the night. Lulu suddenly cries, and he gently covers her with a blanket. As Arisa calms her down, and tells them that he has no intention of accepting that kind of service. As they fall asleep, he quietly pulls the blanket over them. He noticed Arisa's expression changed, but he brushes it off as just his imagination. He decides it is finally time to sleep, and turned off his system. Later, he slowly opens his eyes. As he lies in bed, he suddenly senses something above him. Arisa smiles mischievously and kisses him while he lays still. He tries so hard to snap out of it and commands her to stop using magic against him. After the ordeal, he picks up a new skill called mental resistance. Arisa looks confused and he asks directly if she tried to control him with mental magic. He remembers that she casted her spells twice. First was back from the inn, and second was just now. He realizes that she casted strong spells and bend his will. He firmly orders her to stop dodging and state her true purpose. He suddenly gains a new skill called interrogation and decides to activate it. Under the skill's effect, he orders her to speak the truth without lies or deception. After a moment of hesitation, Arisa finally explains that she only acted because she wanted to serve her master, and that she had already fallen for him. Arisa insists she cannot betray the devotion she feels about him. Suspicious, he asks if she charmed him and tried to brainwash him, but she vehemently denies this. He realizes she truly believes serving him is her sacred duty, so she sneaked into his bed. Still unconvinced, he presses her to reveal the real reason. He then opens her status window and finally checks her information. As he studies her status, he realizes she possesses an unusually large number of powerful skills. Arisa then introduces herself as Tachibana Arisa, explaining that she originally came from Japan like him. She reveals that she reincarnated into the Kubuk Kingdom while retaining the memories of her previous life. Curious, she asks if he is also a reincarnator or perhaps a summoned hero. Hearing her words, he realizes she has already figured out his name. Arisa explains she retained the memories of a woman named Tachibana Arisa. He admits his own status does not show anything like that, meaning they share a similar situation. Arisa asks why he suddenly went quiet as he considers the possibility they share a distant Japanese connection. She admits that he is only the second person he has met like this, and then looks at sleeping Lulu. She sighs that it is cruel, since if she were born in Japan, she might have become an idol. In their world, she gets pity for being pale, and her features clash with this world's beauty standards, making her seem unattractive to locals. She calls him handsome though, but an ordinary foreign face. Arisa happily calls him master again, but he quickly tells her to stop calling him that. Curious, he asks whether she was reincarnated or transferred to this world. Arisa explains that transferred people are those summoned into this world as heroes, and the reincarnated people are instead born naturally in this world. She mentions that transferred people arrive in this world with their original bodies and clothes, and is certain because a hero from the Saga Empire told her directly. He thinks the Saga Empire must be the only country capable of summoning heroes, and considers it as a way to return home. Arisa pulls the blanket over herself, and starts teasing him about their ordeal earlier. As she watches him think seriously, she notes that he always worries too much. He just sighs, stating that he is neither reincarnated nor transferred like the others. Instead, he explains that he simply regained consciousness here as if waking from a dream. Surprised, Arisa asks if that means he never met a god at all. He confirms that he simply woke up alone in a wasteland with no one around. Back then, he started at level 1 with very little magic power and no skills at all. Arisa is shocked by how difficult his starting situation must have been, and tells her to list all the skills and abilities she possesses. Arisa begins by explaining that her first skill is mental magic at level 5 since she put every skill point she gained since birth into it. She bluntly tells him he can ask her everything, and he asks how many skill points people gain per level and how many are needed to raise mental magic. She reveals that each level grants 2 points, averaging around 7 to 12 overall. With this, he realizes that the skill point cost for mental magic increases with each level. Comparing their growth, he suspects that either he is special or there is some hidden pattern behind the numbers. Reflecting further, he concludes his learning efficiency might be several times higher than a normal person's. When Arisa asks how he learns new skills, he replies that he usually just selects them from a list. He then pauses, realizing his situation might actually be different from hers. She explains that new skills appear on the list once their conditions are met and enough points have been earned. In his case, he learns skills directly through actions and believes key skills might be involved. Thinking it over, he realizes reincarnators and transferred people like them may simply be more special. She then elaborates that the self-check skill allows someone to confirm their own status and see detailed information. Hearing this, he concludes that his ability to freely pick skills from the list must come from that self-check ability. She adds that skill concealment lets her hide her abilities and recheck them later without leaving any trace. She admits she wanted appraisal but lacked enough reincarnation points, while he notes it is the skill used to view others' status. He adds that even his AR display shows her information as unknown because the goddess granted her concealment skill. She then shows her item box ability, describing it as a storage system similar to an in-game inventory. Unlike heroes with infinite inventory, her item box holds limited slots but can stack identical items. After hearing her explanation, he realizes his own storage ability works more like an infinite inventory. She asks for permission to use her skill, and says she will take out some water from her treasure vault. They agreed to proceed as she prepares to demonstrate her ability. Raising her hand, Arisa activates her skill and opens the item box. Arisa casually pulls out a metal water jug from the portal. Smiling playfully, she drinks straight from the jug without hesitation. He notes that repeatedly pulling items must drain her magic, while wondering how old she truly is inside. Observing her skill, he realizes this storage works differently from his own skill. He quietly concludes that he does not really need a weaker storage ability. She suddenly announces that she has gained the skill called Item Box, Treasure Vault, and also the Unyielding Spirit, which is a trump card. Her skill, Full Burst, unleashes a full burst that multiplies attack power, but drains all stamina and mana. However, she adds that it can only be used 3 times, with 1 charge recovering each month. He sighs that magic does not work well on him, so she kept using her skills. Changing the topic, she asks him how many unique skills he actually has, and warns him to never reveal their trump cards. She warns him that unique skills are powerful trump cards and should never be revealed to others. He then quietly checks his status, thinking how does he count his number of skills. Checking his status, he quietly realizes that he possesses 4 unique abilities. Arisa remarks that having many unique skills means a person has a greater soul capacity according to the gods. He concludes that, like a gamer, he probably has not met the conditions to unlock the other 3 yet. Curious, he asks how she used mind magic without chanting, and she explains it is a hidden function of the self-status skill. She explains that once a spell is learned, only the final activation keyword must be recited in the mind. Surprised, she realizes he has been struggling with incantations and asks if he cannot properly use magic. Changing the topic, he asks her to show what items she keeps in her item box. She happily opens it and spreads several belongings across the floor, including 5 spellbooks for mind magic. Looking through them, he notes there are a lot of clothes, like a sailor uniform, and maid outfit herself as a hobby before reincarnating. When he suggests selling the spellbooks to buy her freedom, she reminds him that slaves cannot keep money anyway. She elaborates that a purple-haired girl like her selling hated mind magic books would only bring trouble, since people view purple hair as a bad omen. Hearing this, he decides to read the spellbooks later and asks her to store the gold coins inside her item box as well. Shocked by it, she asks if he is extremely rich, but he denies and told her not to touch the money. Before sleeping, he gently asks why she became a slave and clarifies, it is not an order. Arisa quietly hesitates, unsure whether she should answer. She begins her story, saying she once tried to improve her country using knowledge from her previous life. She explains that as a princess of the Kubuk kingdom, she attempted agricultural reforms but failed, leading to famine and civil unrest. During the chaos, the king and crown prince's wives were publicly executed. In the end, the royal family was forced to revive the withered labyrinth beneath the castle as slaves. Since then, every full moon, a royal with the lil-omened hair had to be sacrificed to revive the labyrinth. He suspects they were spared execution only because the invaders feared the labyrinth might wither again. On the next full moon, a demon suddenly appeared and destroyed the castle. Amid the chaos, Arisa and Lulu escaped and wandered the mountains until a slave trader named Nito found them. He then asks why she did not use mind magic to make Nito treat them like daughters. Arisa explains that by the time she thought of using mind magic to survive, she had already signed the contract and become a slave. He wonders if the labyrinth might actually exist to create demon lords. Arisa says some scholars believe that, though the gods have never confirmed the theory. With this, he asks whether she has ever been to Selvyra, the famous labyrinth city. She replies it was actually a labyrinth that appeared along the road to Selvyra after a disturbance Nito got caught in. Shocked, he asks if she means a demon created an entirely new labyrinth. There are only 6 active labyrinths exist, the last appearing over 10 years ago, and creating one requires a legendary artifact. He wonders if the demon's goal might have been mass-producing monsters to fight heroes. She replies that it could have been a preparation for something bigger, noting an ancient labyrinth like Selvyra would already suffice. She wonders if she could enter the Seru labyrinth because she wants to level up. He agrees, and promised to ask his contact. Hearing he might help her enter the labyrinth, Arisa happily hugs him and thanks him. He spends the night thinking about the things he discussed with Arisa until he falls asleep. As he lies in bed, he wonders if he overslept and decides he will deal with the consequences later. Suddenly, Xena and Martha burst into the room, shouting his name and asking if he is awake. He rises from the bed and greets them back. Beside him, Arisa remains asleep. He realizes that he completely forgot about this weird arrangement. Xena and Martha burst into the room and accuse him of being crude after seeing him surrounded by girls in bed. Embarrassed, Martha awkwardly apologizes for intrusion and quickly leave the room. While he's muttering to himself, Arisa asks if he has any clean clothes for Lulu. She tells him to go after Xena or things might become troublesome. He clarifies that the girl is more like his friend than lover and decides he should clear up the misunderstanding. Using his skill, he checks Xena's location and realizes she should be leaving soon. He quickly rushes out through the window to follow her. Spotting her down the street, he leaps down from the building to catch up and lands beside the startled Xena. He accidentally catches her as she stumbles, quickly insisting it is all just a misunderstanding. He explains he must have been half asleep and simply ended up in the wrong bed. Teary-eyed, Xena heard that when a man buys female slaves, it is often for night service. While patrolling Seiryu City, he silently curses Lilo for causing the misunderstanding and assures her that they are simply helping him as maids. Looking at her, he notices her outfit is different compared, and compliments her. However, he thinks that it's too thin for the cold, so he suggests to take her shopping as well. Excited, Xena happily agrees. After comparing many stoles, Xena eventually accepts the gift of a pink stole he chose for her and is in a great mood when they leave. When they return home, Arisa greets him cheerfully, glad that he cleared up the earlier misunderstanding. She was hungry, so she asks Lisa to get her something to eat and reports that others are still eating nearby. Shin goes back to his room and wash up and later joins them. He gathers the girls and hands over money to let them buy clothes for everyone and reminds them to be careful outside. The children happily promise to guard everyone. Before they leave, he reminds them that if they find a life magic caster, they should ask them to use cleaning magic on them. Arisa asks permission to use her magic, and he grants her. As they walk away, Xena comments that the slaves seem quite casual with him, and this is what he prefers. She asks about his plans, and he replies that he has the day off, and asks if she is returning to her original unit. He realizes that magic soldier units are usually sent on long patrol routes, meaning she may not return for months. When Shin asks if the labyrinth will stay closed to civilians, she confirms it will remain sealed for several months. Thinking ahead, he decides that once they finish sightseeing, they might head to the labyrinth city since Arisa's request cannot be fulfilled here. Xena shyly asks if he has any plans for today, and he replies that he plans to find an inn that accepts demi-humans. She then asks if she may join him, to which he hesitates because house hunting is not very fun. Later, the two arrive at a small inn. After checking with his radar skill, he calls out, sensing someone is inside. A woman responds and comes down to greet them. She apologizes for the wait and introduces herself as Nora the handyman. When asked what he needs, he says he would like a recommendation for an inn or rental property and explains that he needs a place where demi-humans can stay together. After checking her records, Nora suggests renting a house since inns in the West District have poor security. She then asks about his budget. After knowing it, she suggests 3 houses that he can check. However, she warns that the houses have some rumor about them, and it's better to check it in person. The first one once had an owner who was assassinated, the second one is next to the brothels, and the third one is rumored to be haunted. Not feeling good about it, he declines going in since it feels cursed. She suggests that she can ask the temple to take care of the undead issue, and promise to find him a suitable house. With this, they decide to come back later and check other properties. Nora informs them as well about the open-air stage, about the tragedy of doomed love. This is a perfect activity to kill time, as well as visiting the flea market. Later, at the flea market, the children happily greet their master. They excitedly tell him about their shopping, and show him the dresses they bought. He smiles warmly at them, saying they all look adorable. He then notices Arisa wearing a wig so she won't be getting stared at. She asks another favor from him, and she brought them to the man selling cards. He inspects them and can see that they are appropriate for studying language, and looks good for teaching the girls. He compliments the merchant, saying they're useful cards. The man shares that he once pitched the idea to the merchant guild, but it didn't push through because of the cost. Asking if they're all hand-drawn, Shin quietly contemplates that he could reduce the cost by printing them. As if reading his mind, Arisa warns him that sharing such advanced technology could be dangerous. He agrees with her and tells her that he will be cautious about mentioning printing. He then buys one set, and is surprised by the price of it, since it looks like he won't make any profit. The man smiles, saying that it's enough for him if his product is appreciated. He then asks for an advice, and Shin tells him that he should be mindful of the materials he will be using. As they head out, the girls reveal that they are planning to watch the open-air show. They discuss whether to buy tickets, and Xena mentions that she knows someone selling ticket at a lower price. In the end, Lisa handled buying everyone's ticket. Shin apologizes to Xena for spending her time with his group again. She assures him that she's enjoying, and he mentally notes to make it up to her. Later, he goes to shop with her and picks up an earring that suits her golden hair. Their time together is interrupted again when Arisa requests that she likes accessories as well. He looks back at Xena, and wished that she asks openly like Arisa does. As the girls grab Xena to look at other accessories, Shin buys the earrings for her, and plans to give it to her as a surprise gift. They regroup after Lisa got the tickets, and they proceed to the open-air stage. A tragic play, based on a true story, titled The Tragedy of Muno Territory, begins on stage. Watching the performance, Shin and the others try to follow the complicated story and discuss the characters. He notes that Poki and Tama cannot keep up with the plot. On stage, the dramatic lovers exchange passionate lines before the audience. Shin and his companions continue to watch the play together, while the Beast girls relax sleepily on him. While watching, he absent-mindedly wonders how Arisa's name would be written in kanji. He gently pats Tama's head while she's sleeping. On stage, soldiers corner a mage and accuse him of daring to oppose them, and that he tried to abduct Lady Liana, the fiancée of Marquise Muno. The noble condemns the mage and declares his sins unforgivable. The accused man's family is suddenly executed as the blade drops from the guillotine. Xena and others gasp in shock while the audience reacts wildly at the dramatic execution. As the mage cries for his family, the noble declares that the commoner who opposed the Marquise will die without mercy. The scene erupts into chaos as the accused mage fights back against the soldiers. Watching the dramatic battle, Shin wonders why they do not simply use magic for stage effects. The mage vows revenge, claiming no one is left to protect the innocent. A maid suddenly steps forward and draws a hidden dagger, earning a reaction from the crowd. She swiftly attacks the hooded man from behind and drives the blade into his back. Shocked, the man curses her and asks if she was secretly working for the Marquise. The maid coldly declares that he is not worthy of the lady as she finishes her strike. Zen, the mage, suddenly collapses from the stab wound as Liana rushes to his side in shock. Cradling him in her arms, Liana tearfully calls his name as the maid reveals the dagger was coated with deadly wyvern venom. As his life fades, Zen weakly tells his beloved they will meet again in the next life. Liana cries out in despair while Xena covers her mouth as the tragic scene unfolds. Refusing to return to the Marquise, Liana declares she belongs to Zen. With resolve, she drives the blade into herself, which makes Xena gasps in horror as the girl collapses from the fatal wound. The crowd erupts in loud reactions as the tragic performance reaches its dramatic climax. As the audience erupts in applause, Shin tells the girls to go back to sleep. He realizes the story is not over yet and remarks that the tragedy is continuing. In the play's final act, the protagonist's corpse rises as an undead and vows revenge against the Marquis' entire family. The poisoned dagger had no effect because the protagonist possessed an immortal body. Just as the undead prepares to take revenge, a wandering paladin appears and defeats him before he can act. The crowd loudly praises the unexpected twist as the story continues. The undead protagonist curses the land and vows to rot there forever. He declares that he will drag Marquis Muno's territory down with him in revenge. The paladin confronts the Marquis, who solemnly claims he will sacrifice himself to protect his people. Watching the scene, Shin notes that the paladin is overacting and that the Marquis' sudden change feels suspicious. In the end, the play concludes with Marquis Muno sacrificing himself to lift the curse, dying to save his territory. After the performance, the group leaves the theater as Shin remarks that he feels thirsty. He returns with drinks, and the girls gratefully thank him. Since he is getting hungry, he decides to buy food from a nearby stall. Arriving at a food stand, Shin notices something interesting about the dish being prepared called clap, which made from gabo vegetables. A woman approaches Shin and asks if he is a traveler from abroad. She asks how he liked the play and comments that the ending was quite terrible. He wonders if the Marquis' sudden change or the paladin appearing without warning caused the strange ending. The woman agrees and begins explaining the story behind the play. She says the original script ended with the mage killing the paladin after taking revenge, but nobles forced the ending to be changed. In the original story, the Marquis abducted the mage's wife, who was actually just a commoner's daughter. After thinking about it, he decides to pass the bread instead. When he finally takes a bite, he immediately realizes the snack tastes extremely bitter. He struggles to swallow the snack as the strong bitterness of the girls overwhelms him. The girls watch in confusion while he suggests they can spit it out if he cannot eat it. He now understands that the snack is actually pretty good despite thinking the gabo fruit tastes awful. Meanwhile, Xena tells Arisa that loved the play and cried when Princess Liana abandoned herself. Arisa comments that the mage should have reclaimed his dagger, since dying made everything pointless. As the others enjoy the crunchy snack, Arisa wonders if the Marquis is the villain for tearing the lovers apart. Xena points out that the princess might actually be responsible since she betrayed her arranged fiancé. Arisa asks if she would prefer someone arranged for her than her master, reminding her that once a woman marries, she is expected to stay at home. In this country, once someone enlists in the army, they must serve for at least 5 years. The girls argue that love matters more, and that a woman must be brave enough to ignore her family for someone she loves. Arisa warns that if she continues to be complacent, she might lose their true love to someone else. Before it escalates further, Shin cuts in and tells them they have said enough, and asks her to apologize to Xena. Noticing the girls staring at him silently, he asks if they still want snacks. The girls quickly reply that while caps are good, they would rather eat meat skewers. Lisa rushes over and asks Shin how many skewers he plans to buy while remarks that she moved too quickly. The girls cheerfully gather around as they offer to help carry the food. Xena watches quietly, her expression deep, and Shin looks back at her. As they walk through the town, Xena spots a familiar group. She greets Iona, Rue, and Lilo, while Arisa sneaks back to the inn. Noticing their patrol gear, Shin comments that guarding outside the city must be difficult. The soldiers explain they fought monsters called Great Fang Ants today, and reveal they spotted enemy cavalry infiltrating the territory earlier. Shin realizes the infiltrators may have intentionally lured the Great Fang Ants toward their side, and observes that their leader was the one wearing a red helmet. Furious at the thought, the girl declares that the next time she finds those infiltrators, they are going straight to the gallows. After thanking Xena for the information, the soldiers bid goodbye before returning to their duties. As they leave, Xena asks if there were any other injuries, while Shin pauses after suddenly recognizing a familiar voice. He rushes towards the scene, and found Poki and Tama carrying a dead monster. The soldiers immediately ready their weapons in alarm, and Shin reassures them that it is already dead. The girls explain they defeated it after it attacked their carriage from above, and Lisa assured them that no other enemies seemed to be hiding nearby. Checking his map, Shin notices enemies approaching and realizes a different species of ants may have escaped the territorial army. Realizing danger is approaching, he quickly gives orders, telling the girls to grab their weapons and bring supplies from the carriage. He explains to the soldier that the great winged ant they defeated was likely just a scout. Just then, they hear the city bell rings loudly, causing the soldiers to rush toward the gate and for the people to grow anxious. Shin notes that great winged ants are only level 3, weaker than armed soldiers, but their claws, shells, and flight still threaten civilians. At this moment, the swarm has already reached the city walls, and several of them begin flying over the walls. Watching the scene, Shin notes that the anti-monster barrier on the wall appears to be working. However, he realizes the ants are slipping through the barrier, and recalls that the Dragon Valley barrier had physical resistance, unlike this one. Deciding to keep them safe, he tells Arisa to take Lulu and hide in the back of the tavern. He then orders Poki and Tama to guard the tavern entrance while the girls ask what he plans to do. He replies that he and Lisa will drive away any monsters that get close to the inn. As the city gate begins closing, soldiers rush to secure the entrance while the alarm echoes across the walls. Xena helps neutralizing the monsters, as the other soldiers offer support. With Xena's magic and the crossbows suppressing them, the ants stop flying recklessly and begin retreating. As he watches the insects, Lisa steps in and tells him to leave the battlefield to them. She lunges at the enemies and attacks, annihilating several ants in one strike. He notices several ants flying over the barrier and aren't attacking. He then realizes that few of them got into the inn. Fortunately, Tama and Poki protect the entrance. Poki leaps forward and strikes a flying ant, while Tama charges in to support her. Tama shouts for Poki to take the opening and delivers a powerful hit against the monster. Working together, the two girls quickly finish off another attacking ant. Watching calmly, Shin notes that the situation is under control. After confirming they defeated the nearby ants, the girls rush off down the street to chase the remaining monsters. Poki narrowly avoids several attacks as she continues fighting the remaining ants. More ants dive toward her, but she counters with quick strikes while Tama supports her. Noticing the spell effects, Shin realizes Arisa is helping them with her magic. After nearly half an hour of fighting, the soldiers finally report that only a few ants remain. Observing the aftermath, Shin notices that several ants appear to have broken into Nora's shop. He guesses Nora is hiding in the basement and decides to help. He tells Lisa to keep fighting outside while he rushes to help inside the shop. He quickly arrives at the entrance and pushes the door open. Inside, several winged ants buzz aggressively while searching the room. Looking around the room, he grabs a wooden stick and swings it repeatedly to their direction, smashing several winged ants as they swarm toward him. After crushing them and acquiring a new skill, he notices the hidden door full of holes and realizes that was a close call. He calls out to Nora and asks if she is alright, and she quickly confirms from inside. He notices the staircase is covered with acid left behind by the ants, making it dangerous, and wonders if crushing rocks would be helpful to cover it. Just then, a man rushes to them and performs a spell, Ivy Control, calling forth thick vines. Using his magic, the man summons vines that quickly saves Nora. She thanks Shin and Yasu. Shin realizes that he is the infamous jack of all trades, and an elf. Nora confirms that he is an elf, and Shin admits he has never seen someone with green hair before. When Shin asks if she is an elf with long ears, Nora clarifies that he is actually a forest fairy type elf. She points out that his race is actually called the Long Ears, which is different from normal elves. The founder of the Saga Empire once mistakenly called the Long Ears elves, and people still confuse them even 1,000 years later. Shin realizes the flow of time in this world may differ from Earth. She adds that calling an elf a long ear is actually considered a major insult. Realizing his mistake, Shin apologizes, and the elf tells him he is forgiven. To explain the difference, Nora shows the elf's ear. After ensuring her safety, he heads out to check on his group. Xena rushes towards him in panic, checking if he's okay. She then reports that there were no deaths among soldiers or citizens, only minor injuries now treated by priests. With the situation under control, the city walls and the light cavalry begin patrols while Xena leads forces outside the city. Shin remarks that it is a shame her day off ended like this, and their outing had to end so quickly. She mentions that she needs to act fast and help protect other villages since it would be disastrous if they are left alone, especially since they are not as advanced as the defenses of Siryu City. Later, a soldier calls out to him and asks if he is the owner of the bag Lisa is carrying. He confirms as the man demands that he hands over the cores. He realizes that the soldier belongs to the army's finance division, who forcefully takes the bag from his hand. As the soldier walks away with the bag, he suddenly calls out for him to wait and asks that he issue a receipt. The soldier is insulted, and he remarks that a true merchant always stays cautious and should rely on paperwork. He notices the price offered for the cores is slightly below the market rate. After the correct calculations, he is told that he can redeem it for cash at the government office. Once he secured the seal, the soldier remarks that Shin is quite a convincing merchant. Shin clarifies that he's just careful, and quietly mutters that the soldier is shady. He then receives notifications for new skills and title. Later, the group realizes the first ant that Tama defeated must have slipped into the city earlier with a supply wagon. Proudly, Tama and the others celebrate after they successfully protected the inn from monsters. The innkeeper guides them toward a quieter spot beside the building. While they cannot give them a free room with paying guests, they prepared a meal as thanks for helping protect the inn. As delicious food aromas fill the air, Uni arrives with the fruits Shin requested, intended to give it to Lulu who has poor health. He decides that after dinner, he should visit the apothecary. Soon, the children excitedly call for their master. As the food arrives to the table, the group happily gathers around the table and enjoys a warm meal together. As night falls, the town grows quiet under the moonlit sky. Meanwhile, Shin finally bought Lulu's medicine after some merchants invited him for drinks. As he walks, he hears a strange sound nearby and looks up in surprise. Using appraisal, Shin identifies the falling feather as belonging to a shadow owl named Kegshoot. Thinking it might be useful, he decides to bring the feather back for Poki and Tama. As he continues walking through the dark alley, he notices something unusual ahead. Suspecting it might be a robbery, he decides he should step in and check the situation. In the dark alley, he notices several men surrounding a small figure and realizes the victim appears to be a child. Remembering his night vision skill, he decides to activate it so he can clearly see what is happening. Just then, several shadows attack him, and he quickly uses his firearm against them. The shadow lunges forward at incredible speed, slicing through the air as it rushes toward him. He dodges the attack and tries to counterattack, but he is up against something monstrous. Realizing the child will be killed if he hesitates, he pushes himself to defeat the enemies. He aims at it and the shadow lashes out violently, forcing Shin to run to avoid the deadly strike. He leaps midair and attacks the shadow again, finally defeating it. As he lands, he sees another shadow ball defeated by magic. After defeating the rest of the shadows, he quickly runs to check on the injured victim. As the figure lifts his head, he realizes in shock that the victim is not a child, but a rat folk man. He glares at Shin suspiciously and demands to know who he is. He realizes that someone else is hiding beneath the bundle the ratman is protecting. The wounded ratman admits he will not last long and begs him to protect the princess. Understanding the situation, he assures him to leave everything to him. With this, he unlocks the first aid skill and earns the paramedic title. After escaping with the princess and the ratman, they reach the back entrance of the general store. He checks their status and sees that both Nora and Yasu are now asleep. He unlocks the door and gains the lockpick skill and quietly slips inside the room. He gently lays the two on a couch as the storekeepers carefully approach him. Soon, Nora and Yasu come to view and Shin apologizes for the late intrusion. Surprised to see him, they ask why H has come at such a late hour. He explains he brought someone badly injured and urgently asks the shopkeeper to treat him. Yasu uses light magic and sees that they are rat folk. Nora recognizes the red helmet and explains he is the infamous rat folk knight known as Red Helm. Shin adds that the person hidden under the cloth is someone Red Helm called Princess. Confused by his claim, Yasu carefully lifts the cloth and he recognizes the girl as Mia. Realizing the truth, the shopkeeper gasps in shock as they discover the mysterious girl is actually an elf. The group stares at the unconscious girl in shock, realizing she is actually an elf. Shin confirms that she was indeed an elf, explaining that is exactly why he brought her here. Shin notes that Mia's last name, Boruwainen, matches with the store owner, suggesting the connection might not be a coincidence. The girl slowly opens her eyes, and he can't help but notice her beauty. He then asks what they should do with the injured Red Helm. Nora explains they hesitate to act because Red Helm is Mia's benefactor. She then clarifies that Mia is not actually a princess despite what was said earlier. Shin points out that the more urgent issue is treating Red Helm quickly before his condition worsens. Nora suggests calling Horn, a former priest living nearby, since he can treat complicated injuries, and decide to remove the distinctive red helmet to avoid attracting attention. He insists on accompanying Nora, warning that traveling alone at night is dangerous. Night fades into morning as the city awakens under the rising sun. Aressa scolds Shin since she suspects that he visited a brothel. He told her to calm down as she continues to question him. He calmly explains that while fetching Lulu's medicine, he ended up saving a dying beastman on the way back. When she asks if it was a woman, Shin clarifies it was actually an old man with a brooding appearance. The girl excitedly misreads the situation and loudly wonders if it is some kind of romantic scenario. Meanwhile, Lulu wakes up in bed, looking weak but conscious. She tells him that she feels much better than yesterday. He then gives her the medicine he bought and tells her to take it whenever the pain returns. He then mentions asking around about the labyrinth and found out that the Seiryu City Labyrinth is normally off-limits to civilians. He shares that he plans to head south to the royal capital once their sightseeing is finished, and quietly reflects on returning to his own world someday and search for a place where beast girls can live peacefully. The girl excitedly urges them to go visit the labyrinth. He promised to visit it soon with them, and suggests calling Lisa and the others so they can all have breakfast. After breakfast, Shin heads alone to the handyman's shop. He enters the shop, asking if everything is going well. Nora quietly tells Shin that both patients are still asleep. She explains that Horn, a former priest, used basic holy magic to stop Red Helm's bleeding, but could not fully heal him. Shin realizes stronger potions could heal the wounds, but they are far too expensive. She reassures him that the manager will gather potion ingredients cheaply, so they can make one soon. She adds that the manager already has matters under control and went to the mountain woods earlier to gather supplies. He asks about Mia and learns from the manager that she is unconscious due to severe mana exhaustion. He recalls that treatments like mana transfer or spirit revitalization could help, but he first checks her status screen. The screen reveals Mia's full profile, confirming she is an elf and currently unconscious. He notes there are no curses or illness, concluding her stamina is low while her mana is slowly recovering. Nora remarks that a mana-restoring potion could heal her quickly, but such potions are extremely expensive, and she could recover naturally if she stayed somewhere filled with dense mana. Shin suddenly focuses on the idea of a mana spring, and recalls that the springs in Dragon Valley are under his control. As he considers this, he checks Mia's status again, and sees that her condition has stabilized. He then mentions hearing something upstairs, suggesting Mia may have awakened. She remarks that Shin's hearing is surprisingly sharp, almost like an elf or a rabbit folk. They head upstairs toward the room where Mia is resting. Nora checks on her while Shin waits outside. She tells Mia that Shin was the one who saved both her and Red Helm. They learn that the red-helmeted ratfolk knight is named Mize, who is still currently resting. Mia quietly notes that the man outside the door is called Shin, who asks if he can come inside the room. Nora opens the door and lets Shin enter. He immediately notices Mia's unusual silver eyes, and he introduces himself as a traveling merchant. Mia wonders if he might be a spirit user, and he admits he has never actually met one before. Nora explains that the only people with the gift called Spirit Sight can see spirits. He realizes Mia possesses that rare ability while most elves cannot perceive spirits without it. Nora asks if she can eat something, and leaves to prepare porridge, and asks Shin to keep Mia company. They end up talking, but without Nora's translating Mia's broken speech. Shin gradually understands a few words from the elven language. From this, he deduces the concept of magical essence flowing through the earth, and gains the skills elven language and cipher decoding. Nora soon returns carrying a tray and prepares a warm meal for Mia. She happily remarks that Mia's appetite has returned as the elf begins eating. After thanking them for their help, Shin apologizes for the trouble and prepares to take his leave. Surprising Mia, she suddenly reaches out and stops him. He gently assures her that he will stay by her side until she falls asleep. Shin walks back toward the house after finishing his errand. As he approaches, he hears the girls practicing words using learning cards. Arissa leads the practice confidently while the others cheer and keep studying. He realizes they are learning characters from cards bought at the flea market. Noticing his return, the girls excitedly welcome their master back home. The girls excitedly show him their progress and proudly tell him they can now recognize several letters. He praises their effort, making the girls beam with pride. Curious, Shin asks about one card, and the girl confidently declares it says meat. He struggles to correct the girls because they confidently insist the card means meat. He patiently explains that the cards should be read as animal names like goat and rabbit, not simply as meat. The girls look confused and wonder if rabbits and goats also count as meat. Lisa joins the discussion and clarifies that the card actually represents a bird, not chicken meat. Shin then writes the word for meat as an example, accidentally gaining the skill, education. He adds a new meat card to the set and gains more skills. Arissa comments that her country is very patriarchal when he realizes she cannot read the Shiga language. She explains that even nobles were not required to learn reading, so no one ever taught her. She claims she secretly learned the common tongue from legal texts and promises to master the cards in 3 days. Impressed, Uni praises her sharp memory. Martha spots her outside and calls out to her since she is still in duty. She volunteers to help the little girl with her duty, but she assures that it is already done after Tama and Poki helped her. Shin praises his girls for their hard work, while Martha reminds Uni to always report back after finishing tasks. Later, the girls rush in cheerfully and introduce themselves to Mia. Shin explains he brought them because the rescued ratfolk wanted to meet the princess, guarded by a ratfolk knight. Mia looks confused as the girls greet her warmly. He notices Mia's eye color has changed from silver and realizes she had been using her spirit sight earlier. The girls excitedly admire her beauty, while Risa can tell that she's not a ratfolk princess. They continue to hang around Mia, and he tells them to take care of her as he heads downstairs. Once again, she tries to stop him from leaving. Downstairs, Nora thanks Lulu for preparing delicious snack. Nora recalls that Shin mentioned being a traveling merchant. When asked about it, he explains that he once had a pack horse, but it ran away during the meteor shower. She hesitantly says that if he has enough funds, she has something to offer, and asks if he would be interested in buying a carriage. She explains that a retiring merchant acquaintance is selling a carriage with 2 draft horses. Shin thinks the offer sounds good but admits he has never driven a carriage before. Lulu quietly approaches, and he encourages her to speak if something is on her mind. Lulu shyly admits she has handled carriage before and could manage it. With this, he quickly decides they should buy it and have her teach them how to drive. Nora reminds him he should ask the price first, and so he performs a quick market check. After estimating the value, he hands her the money to make a purchase, reminding himself to be more careful with his spending next time. Arisa excitedly suggests they practice camping before beginning their journey. A few days later, the group holds a camping training session. The team splits into groups to prepare for the trip, and the girls proudly show off their travel clothes. The girls enthusiastically divide tasks as some cut grass while others gather materials. They also prepare their bed and just enjoy the morning sun. Meanwhile, the others return carrying supplies and start preparing food over the fire. Arissa proudly shows Shin a kettle she brought for the trip. As dinner begins, the group prepares stew and dark bread while Poki and Tama watch the kettle over the campfire.